Lights out and away we go. Oh my goodness! They're down in a hurry, cycling away from the traffic. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the all-new GT3 GTP Multiclass League as brought to you by UKSimRacing community on iRacing. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for an all-new season of racing action, and whereas last time we left off with Season 11 of the GT3 League with the introduction of the full set of IMSA Class GTP racing machines as of the 2023 Season 4 update on iRacing, we thought it was only appropriate we decide to expand our horizons here at UKSimRacing and create our first ever GTP GT3 Multiclass League. That's right, tonight we kick off the inaugural season of this league, and what a season we have got ahead. 10 rounds of racing action, 60 minutes of racing in each and every round, and come the end of it we will be crowning 5 champions overall. We'll be looking at drivers in both the Pro and AM classes of GT3 and GTP class, plus also you've got the wider Teams Championship. There's plenty to play for on an international stage, and as we get ready to go racing today, we are here in the United States of America at the one and only Indianapolis Motor Speedway to get things underway, and previously known as the Brickyard and still holding that name today in reference to its brick surface back in 1909. The circuit has evolved quite considerably since then, and indeed nowadays it's made up of primarily asphalt, with the only bricks remaining being a yard of bricks at the start finish line. But still, this circuit holds an antiquity to it, and it's an infamous circuit across the US of A for the one and only reason year in year out it brings some of the largest crowds to its circuit side. And indeed, as you tune in live today on the official UKSimRacing Twitch TV channel, you get to look forward to some fantastic racing, and indeed we're going to be setting the tempo for what is expected to be an absolute thriller of a season. But as we get ready to go racing, most of our drivers are currently in the final practice warm-up session undergoing their driver briefing, so it gives us ample time to give you the season ahead and also the rules. But let's do a little bit of housekeeping first, in the fact that this broadcast is being brought to you live by the official UKSimRacing Twitch channel. If you go to twitch.tv/UKSimRacing, you can be tuning in there, and welcome to you guys and girls that are tuning via Twitch. And do feel free to say hi, don't be shy, let us know how you're doing today on this Sunday evening. We'll be in the Sunday the 17th of September 2023. Let us know who you're cheering on and how hyped you are for an all new season of racing, because I can definitely tell you I am. And allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action over the entirety of this season from the commentary booth. But well, without further ado, let's show you what the calendar looks like, and here is the calendar. And we start off today with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. In round number 2 we make our way to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway. In round number 3 on the 1st of October we conclude the first portion of the season with a visit to the circuit des Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. 3 opening rounds which are absolutely unique in their natures, with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway being arguably a bit more of a power circuit compared to Fuji International Speedway, a highly technical circuit, one that's very downforce dependent, and we bring it all together with the circuit des Spa-Francorchamps, which has a little bit of everything. And that's only the first 3 rounds, and then we have a mid-season break week before return for the second part of the season with rounds 4 through to 7, and round number 4 will be at the Watkins Glen International in the United States of America. We make our way back to the US of A, indeed to the mecca of road racing in the US of A with its highly cambered corners, and then when in round number 5 we make our way to Le Mans in France for the one and only circuit de 24 Hours du Mans, and we couldn't run this league without visiting France and the Le Mans circuit, for the simple reason there is no more synonymous circuit when it comes to multi-class racing than the 24-hour of Le Mans circuit, and we look forward to plenty of battling action there at the end of the first half of the season on the 22nd of October. As we make our way into the second half of the season, round number 6 will see our drivers return to the United States of America for the third time for the Sebring International Raceway in Florida, after which they'll make their way to Italy for the Autodromo Nacional Monza in round number 7, and we take our second mid-season break before heading into the final third of the season, starting with round number 8 on the 19th of November at the Austrian circuit at the Red Bull Ring. And then in round number 9 it'll be the Daytona International Speedway, our fourth and final visit to the US of A, and then we bring it all to a close at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom on the 3rd of December. Now you notice that some of the rounds on there do have little asterisks against their round number. Indeed, that's rounds 2, 3 and 6, and we should point out to you those rounds will be brought to you via a broadcast. However, it will be a post-round broadcast, so the racing you'll see in those broadcasts will not be live. We're going to do everything we can in order to cover those as close as possible to the raw live experience for you guys and girls. More on exactly what that entails as the round 2 broadcast, and we'll tell you when that's going to occur at the end of today's broadcast. But just to point out, but always for the remainder of the season, bar those 3 rounds, every broadcast will be live from trackside. Indeed, you're going to see the absolutely raw, unfiltered action as it plays out live on air. Now coming on to our circuit for today, then it's none other than the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, located in the town of Speedway in Marion County of the state of Indiana in the US of A. When you see from the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, thank you to them for the wonderful simulator and the track maps that come with it. This road course is rather straightforward in terms of how it looks, but it's anything but straightforward when you race on it. For as our drivers make their way around the 14 corner course, they'll find themselves very quickly running down the start finish straight along the oval banking down towards turn 1, but a heavy braking zone followed up by a serpentine sequence, which is rather synonymous in fact with the opening couple of corners of the Catalunya circuit in Spain, albeit this circuit preceded the Catalunya circuit by quite some years. And as our drivers make their way through the right into the left hand complex, they then come through the long right hander at turn number 3 before setting themselves up for a very late apex right hander at turn number 4, and arguably the corner where we could see quite a lot of battle in action, and also a few drivers get it wrong on the brakes, particularly in the GTP class. Coming through that right hander, then make their way into the S of turns 5 and 6 flat out as quickly as possible through there, or charging their way down the mid straight in towards turn number 7, overtaking opportunities of plenty there, and indeed opportunities to pass the slower classes if you're in the GTP class. While drivers break their way into a left hand right angle corner at turn number 7, and as they make their way out of that corner, it's then going through the slalom of turns 8 and 9. When the GT3 class, they won't be able to attack those corners as well as the GTPs. We could see some overtaking opportunities abound as they come out of 9 and up into the sharp right hander at turn number 10. As they come out of 10, they'll go for the long right-hander at turn number 11, which will see our drivers briefly return to the oval layout, where they make their way onto the brakes for the right-hand right-angle corner at turn number 12, a corner that can go up to 4 wide under the most intense battles as it tapers through a very narrow apex, and indeed the exit of the corner extremely tight, and all the drivers will once go over to the right-hand side of the road for turn number 13, and essentially a switch back there into a left-hander, a left-hand hairpin, then barrels our drivers outwards onto the banking once again as they come out of turn number 14 to complete the lap and start it all over again. But indeed, this circuit, a highly challenging circuit in its own right, and a great way to start off the season with all the racing that does lie ahead. Now, as we get ready to go racing today, let's give you an overview of the rules. And as we can see, car setup wise, drivers are permitted to change their car before round number 4, but they will receive a 25% points deduction penalty if they do go for a car change. Now, what does that mean in layman's terms? Well, if a driver changes their car in, say, at the end of round number 2 going into round 3, all the points they have accrued up to that point in the championship will be reduced by 25%, and therefore they'll have to work extra hard in the remainder of the season to make up lost ground. Car fuel loads over the course of this series will be restricted to 100% for the GTP class, so they can run with a full fuel tank whenever they want to, particularly in the races. That's where it's going to be important, and 70% for the GT3 class. And indeed, our GT3 drivers do have a little bit less fuel in the car, and that is going to create some strategic variety when we go into each of our races. Otherwise, our drivers can bring open setups to each and every round of racing. Indeed, it comes down to our drivers set up their cars just as much as their choice of car and the skill behind the wheel. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, lasting 30 minutes and split into 2 equal halves. The first 15 minutes shall be for the GTP class only, so we'll see our prototypes making their way out onto circuit, and the second 15 minutes shall be for the GT3 class. We do see the slower machines, albeit still very fast machines in their own right, taking over the circuit, and a very warm circuit by that point, and looking to set their best possible times. And we should point out that final rule, a very important rule for this season, and being introduced to UK sim racing leagues as of late, drivers may not reset to the pit lane during the session. If they do, they shall no longer be permitted to take part in qualifying. Indeed, our drivers must come into the pit in order to reset the car in terms of changing tyres, changing the setup or the fuel load. They are not allowed to park somewhere on circuit, reset to the pit and immediately run back out onto the circuit. Indeed, let's hope not too many get caught out by that. Now, as in terms of the race, given the fact that each and every race this season will be 60 minutes, we don't have variation in terms of time duration on the races. The race shall commence at a double file rolling start with a designated start zone, and today that start zone will be the run out the final corner onto the start-finish straight. However, given the GTPs will start ahead of the GT3s, when the GTP class begins their race with an approximate gap of 2 to 5 seconds between the classes, the GT3s must hold their formation until the GT3 leader enters the start zone. They are not allowed to make any overtakes until they go in the start zone, and the leader dictates when they go. Now, we can keep in mind there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the races. However, given the fact that our drivers do have fuel tank restrictions, particularly the GT3 class, we are expecting at least one pit stop from all our drivers, regardless of whether they're GTP or GT3. Each driver also has one fast repair available, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 23 or more instant points. So therefore, drivers have got to be careful on their best behaviour. But meanwhile, as we make our way back to live pictures, you're not here for the rules and regulations, you're here for the racing. Well, let's take you through our schedule tonight. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 4 minutes time, we'll be making our way into our maiden qualifying session for this season. And my goodness, it is going to be a thrill as we see the camera there being shaken by drivers making their way down the start finish straight. And as qualifying concludes, we'll immediately make our way to the grid for our 60-minute endurance race. Indeed, each and every race this season being an endurance race, and we look forward to seeing how our drivers get on from round to round as they take on these races. But as they get set and ready to go, it's a warm day here today in the state of Indiana. 25 degrees centigrade ambient, 38 degrees centigrade track temperature. So therefore, it is definitely going to feel as though those tyres are coming alive very quickly. And as all of our drivers get set, we've got a whole host of drivers on the grid for this season, as split across the 4 classes. And well, you'll have to forgive us if the overlay continues to be updated in the build-up to going into qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. But understandably, as we get set to go for an all-new season of racing, we do sometimes have a couple of drivers who just join up right at the end of the first round of practice session, and therefore we do our best to get all the driver data in, but sometimes we have to make a few updates just right at the end. But indeed, we have some favourites, including the return of the Symphony Esports driver Jonathan Hitchin from the United Kingdom, and he's going to be racing in what is the GTP Pro class this season, bringing out the Acura machine as he makes his way on through turns 8 to 9, and looking forward to how he gets on most definitely there. And one of the drivers is widely tipped to be one of the favourites of this season, given the fact that whatever class he applies his mind to, he absolutely delivers. There's no question about that. But as well as firm favourites and indeed names of old that many of you will be familiar with, we also do have quite a few names on the grid in terms of UK Sim Racing leagues, and we'll introduce them very shortly to you, in the fact that we have got quite a few drivers here today who are a bit of an unknown and therefore could have really served to shake up the racing order as our drivers get set and ready to go. And we're staying within the world of GTPs. We do have the form of the Effect Simulations driver here of Paul Busby, and well, the 420 driver here running in the Cadillac as he makes his way on down. And well, right now the 420 driver much celebrated when he goes racing the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Series, but he's on the grid for the GTP class this season. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, Busby is the perfect driver in a good number of respects, in the fact that he knows how to go on the offensive, but at the same time he knows how to make a car incredibly wide. And indeed, we are looking forward to seeing him applying that all together, and it really will be, if he battles against Jonathan Hitchin, it will be the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, and who out of the two will come out on top? That's something we're highly looking forward to seeing. But we also do have in the GTP AM class a couple of returning names, including one driver who's decided to have his go in the GTP this season. That's none other than Brandon Hay, albeit he's currently in the pit lane. But we also do have newcomer Auden Hegeseta here, as we do see the Norwegian for Racing App Esports Moser making his way on down the start finish straight there. The sole BMW LMDH racing this season by looks of things. In fact, I say that, and in fact we've got 2 confirmed on the grid now, with Rudy Witzland also there in the GTP AM class running in the BMW GTP as he makes his way through turn number 3 into 4. We talked a lot about GTPs. What about GT3s? We do have here the Belgian driver from Shore Competition Esports of Arend Vergawe as the Belgian makes his way through turns 1 and 2 in the Porsche 992, and I do believe his missus maybe, or his wife I should say, may be tuning in the Twitch chat right now. And we do say hello there to Lindsken, I should say. I believe that's how we say it. If not, I do apologise there. And well, as we do say hello to a good number of you in the chat. There's so many of you, in fact, in the Twitch chat already. And I think when we transition it over into qualifying, we'll try and give a shout out and hello to you all there. But as our drivers all get set and ready to go, and we're making his way on around right now, we also do look to Eric Rosev here, and well, one of the big names of the previous season of the GT3 League, indeed, in the fact of what was not our pro champion, I should say, our elite champion for season 11. And right now, the Legion Racing, the Racing Lab Esports KTM GT3 Pro Ferrari 296, the recently unveiled new Ferrari, which has replaced the Ferrari 488 Evo. And well, the main difference between this car and its predecessor and the fact that it's lost 2 cylinders. It's gone from 8 cylinders down to 6 in terms of the engine. And some would say it does take away from that rather throaty V8 of the Ferrari, but still, this Ferrari very capable, and it's definitely demonstrated itself on the international stage already, whether it be in the GT World Challenge alternative IMSA, and we look forward to seeing how the #1 driver gets on today as he effectively does defend his crown here. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to head into qualifying, and well, we have got 30 minutes, and we start off with the GTP qualifying session, and it will be 15 minutes of all of our prototype machines making their way out the pit lane in earnest. And as they do so, well, we do look here to Alex Hill from TT SimSport Corpa, who leads the field out onto the circuit, and well, 15 minutes, here we go. And as he makes his way on through, we do say hello there, not just to Linsken, but also there, I do believe, to Jacko Racing, who says, Paul, you are my hero. Well, that's very kind of you to say, Jacko, but you guys and girls tuning in are the true heroes here in the fact that bringing it all to life, and it's great to have so many of you tuned in. We also say hello there to Chris Eddersford from UKSR, part of the admin team, also to Simon Bamba, also to Billy Bob at 55, and also there to Sir Bottle Job, and also there to Medmo. And well, a big shout out to Medmo on Matt Edwardson, who will be on the grid today in the GT3 AM class. As you may have enjoyed that intro that we had before we went well and truly live at circuit side, and that's all down to Matt Edwardson there. I can't give him enough credit in the fact that when I watch those intros that he puts together, they always make me smile. In fact, bring a slight tear to my eye, and the fact they're so well done, and well, nicely done by him. And we also do say hello there to a couple of other individuals, I do believe, including Matty Wild, SR there, and saying the driver's briefing all done, everyone's set for qualifying. We also do say hello there to RDS Ribbo. And we also do say hello, I believe, there to Dill Onsdale, who is cheering on James Conley, and I think that's everybody there. We've got, no, that Adrian the Great as well, who says he's very happy to be back at UKSR. Also to Mr. Field Filler, who's cheering on Tiki SimSport. And we do have quite a few Tiki SimSport drivers on the grid, predominantly in what is the GT3 class as we understand it, but I believe we'll see plenty more of them, including 2 brothers in the Deensa family, and we'll introduce Satinder, who's returning, and also Shaminda, I should say, who is also going to be on the grid. But as we look forward to seeing how they get on, we also do look forward here to Rob Armstrong, the GTP AM class. He makes his way onto his first flying lap in the Acura as he charges his way on down towards turn #1, and well, as he roars his way on through, well, our drivers getting themselves all comfy set there, and well, I can see that Adrian the Great, who is Adrian Kukulas in the racing groups, and you'll definitely see plenty of the Australian driver out of the circuit. Just reminded me of how to pronounce his surname there in the Twitch chat. I'll do my best to make sure I get it right, Adrian, but I'm sure you'll be correcting me if not. Indeed, I think a number of drivers will be taking me to task if I get it wrong at any point. But as Armstrong makes his way on down towards turn #7, let's come back to the world today and ask ourselves the question, what does it take to deliver a good lap here in Indianapolis? Well, regardless of whether you're GTP or GT3, the key thing about this circuit in particular is in the fact that you've got a lot of heavy braking zones, but also a number of extended trail braking zones, whereby you're looking for a very late apex that only seems to appear when you last see it, or least expect it. And the best example of it being really at turn #10 there, which we have just seen as Armstrong's made his way on through, and also the run up towards what is turn #4, where you're looking for an apex that's unsighted. You're braking into a corner you can't see until you're finally at the end of your braking approach, and then you finally see the apex of the corner. So you've got to have a lot of commitment under braking, but also that bravery to brake as late as possible to set up that late apex and get back on the throttle and immediately hit that throttle, given the fact you've got a number of long runs here, such as the run out of turn 13 onto the start finish straight and down towards turn #1, and that's going to be where a lot of time is made or lost when we go racing, and that's what we look forward to seeing in terms of drivers get it absolutely right. They'll break away or be set up for an overtake, whereas drivers ahead of them get it wrong may just find themselves falling back into the clutches of other drivers. But meanwhile, as our drivers now start to get their first times on the board, well, the GTP Pro class absolutely stacked here, I must say, with the fact that Sight Anstey at the top, currently provisionally at 114.046. We look meanwhile to what is Joshua G. Wilson here as he makes his way on through, weaving his way through turns 8 to 9. The other thing we need to have a good command of around here is weight transfer in your choice of car, in the fact you have a number of corners where it's a quick switch back from left into right or right into left. We just saw that at turns 8 to 9, and we'll see it from turn 12 to 13, where you'll see that Wilson keeps it over to the right hand side to enter turn #13. He's got to snap the car over there out of turn #12, and sometimes being a bit too aggressive or firm with the car, making your way in those direction changes, can unset the balance and take away a couple of attempts of lap time. But as he powers his way down, we do say hello there to N8F66, I believe it is Nathan, who has just subscribed, and saying thank you for subscribing there. We do really appreciate it, Nathan, as our driver here of Wilson makes his way into another lap and sets a personal best of 13.965. But already we see that Joe Newman, the fastest man out there currently in the GTP Pro class, of 13.772. But still, as we look to Joe Newman, the Empire Motorsport driver, weaving his way on around through turn number 7 into 8. We also do have another newcomer on the grid today in the form of what is, I do believe, in fact, not too many more newcomers, I must say, but we do have a driver who's decided to go from GT3 to GTP as of this season of racing, and that is Olympus Esports here, as he's just waiting to rejoin the road surface at the moment. I think going a bit deep into turn number 1, and that is Paul Joseph Cliffs, who's just waiting for the field to come on through, being very respectful there. And well, as he waits to get back on through, some of you may be wondering, how do we discern who's in the Pro versus the AM class in GTP? As we see another car going a bit deep there, and I believe that may just be another GTP AM car. We're just trying to get clarification who overstepped the boundary under braking, and well, we'll try and get an update on that very shortly. But when you look at these cars, if they do have what is a purple door number, they're in the AM class. I mean, if they've got a red door number, they are in the Pro class of the GTPs. And me on the GT3 class, it's blue for Pro and it's green for AM. A straightforward system as we can make it possible. And as he makes his way up speed here, well, Cliff will get himself set up very shortly for an all-new lap. But where are my manners? I think we need to get on board with one of our drives for a fast lap. And we jump on board with Cy Anthony as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway circuit. Making his way down towards turn number 1, up to an exit of 180 miles an hour as he looks to his left-hand side and braking at what will be at the 400-yard board. They're coming all the way down to second gear, and as he traverses turns 1 and 2, you see turning nice and early for turn number 2 as he exits out. Now fields the throttle back in through turn number 3 and into the braking zone for turn number 4, but braking nice and early down to third gear, right the apex curve as he brings the car on through, and now going through turns 5 and 6 flat out here through the left into right as he barrels his way now down the mid-straight up towards turn number 7. It's a brief breather before he transitions into the second half of the lap. Looks his right hand side for his braking marker, and as he looks for it, it will be the 300-yard board as he comes down to second gear. Through the left-hander he goes, and now into 8 and 9, right into left here, using plenty of apex curve at 8 and the same for 9, almost essentially cutting off the corners. And through turn number 10, a bit of dirty off the car in front, so turns a bit earlier to offset that, and going through 11 now, flat out as much as you possibly can. Let the car come out towards the wall. We'll get him back onto the brakes here, braking about 300 yards from corner apex down to second gear, and now bringing the car over to the right side as much as he dares, and as he heads into turn number 13, second gear all the way through, nails it back on the throttle in, now powering his way through the final corner, flat out all the way to the line. Full commitment here from the Cadillac driver, the V8 machine roaring on home turf, and as he heads the line, what's it going to be from Cy Anthony? Is it an improvement? Well, I think he'll feel as though it may have been, it wasn't, but he does set the best second sector of this qualifying session, so he knows there's plenty more time out there. But with that move back to the pits, that may be his qualifying session done and dusted, for the simple reason he has returned to the pits without coming into the pit lane. So that's a gamble there from Cy Anthony. But meanwhile, Austin William Campbell, another name that we love to see on the grid running for Symphony Esports here, as he makes his way on down towards turn number 7. And as he comes on down in towards the braking zone, right now looking to get himself comfortably set up. He's currently P4 in GTP Pro, but it is noticeable how the fact that Joe Newman right now really has put down a high marker of a 13.772, and well, he does have 2 tenths over Wilson in P2. And meanwhile, in the GTP AM class, we've got a very fast driver in the form of Sam Sherwood as he makes his way out the pit lane in the Cadillac V8, and as he gradually makes his way on through there. Well, right now the ProTech Motorsport driver getting himself set up here for what will be another lap or another set of laps very shortly, in the fact that he makes his way to the end of the 8th minute of this qualifying session. Still 7 minutes plus overtime to go for our GTP class, and if you're wondering why it's the GTPs on track before the GT3s, well, simple explanation in the fact that once the 15 minutes is strung, our drivers who are on the lap are allowed to finish their current lap, and given the fact that GTPs are naturally faster than GT3s, it's safer to let the GTPs be out there first to finish their laps as the GT3s make their way out the pit lane. If we did it the other way round, you'd have that risk whereby essentially GTPs would catch up to GT3s on longer circuits before the GT3s have finished their final laps. Therefore, we decided to flip the order around in order to make it safe and sound. But meanwhile, one driver starting to push beyond the safety barriers here is David Rolliston, as he sets a 15.324 as he comes on through turns 1 and 2. Well, right now, definitely looking to be right in amongst the mid-pack of the GTP AM class. And as he comes on through turns number 2 into 3, looking at right now, so he can go a little bit further here in terms of that qualifying position. We do have quite a goal starting to appear in terms of our top 3 in GTP AM are Sherwood, Ray and Hay versus the rest of the field that's been led by Armstrong and then Rolliston. But it looks like it's 3 tenths separating the top 3, and then it is a sizable gap of 4 tenths to Armstrong and then another 4 tenths to Rolliston before you do then have half a second to Witzler. So the GTP AM class right now definitely quite gap open Whereas in the GTP Pro class, we can see the top 5 there in the top left corner of your screen, and much closer together as Rolliston getting a bit wrong there coming out of turn number 10, and then to let the car weave wide and return off of the grass very gradually there. And keep in mind, these GTP class machines do, oh goodness me, and that was very close to a nightmare moment for what was Rolliston, and I believe coming on through there with him was one of our GTP Pro drivers, or we couldn't quite discern who that was at the time, but definitely somebody who was not in a hurry to get on through, but either way just about survived it, and I think it was Matt Strand there who just avoided a bit of contact as we do look to him as he makes his way on down towards the timeline, and will that final subsector spoiled to a degree, but Strand otherwise faster in terms of personal best in sectors 1 through the fray, so I think he'll be a little bit annoyed with the fact that final sector was heavily compromised as he did have that little moment of contact with Rolliston, but thankfully it could have been a nightmare for the pair of them. That could have been the qualifying session done and dusted right then, but as he makes his way on through turn number 4 will mean, while we do look to Ben Cullen as Cullen makes his way on around through turn number 11 here up towards 12, and as he comes down towards the braking zone, currently our lowest placed GTP Pro driver, albeit when we say that, the fact that it's only 1.1 seconds, almost 1.2 seconds separating 11th from pole position in the GTP Pro class, quite close in that Pro class at the moment, and definitely right now I think keying up to something fantastic here later on as Jonathan Hitchin moves to P3 on a 13.992, and meanwhile with 5 minutes left in this GTP qualifying session, all of our drivers right now getting themselves set up here for those final laps, and well, we'll have to wait and see if anybody else can make any sizable improvements, but meanwhile the man who we're talking about earlier in the GTP AM class, he's back out on circuit here, Sam Sherwood, and as he comes on through what his turns at 7, 8 and 9 and now into 10, right now the ProTech Motorsport driver making his way on around in towards turn number 11. Well, with almost 3 tenths between himself and his peers of the 14.180, I think he'll be feeling as though he's quite comfortable here. And Chris Edison there in the Twitch chat saying that Sherwood is an AM. He's usually quite quick, and he definitely laying down the marker here. And well, we may see some class revisions over the first couple rounds of the season, and given the fact that it is a new class added, particularly in the GTP class, we can't get it always perfect immediately, but that will be at the discretion of the administrators for the series in discussion with the drivers. Sherwood goes even faster, now moving that pole time in the GTP AM class to a 13.938, and as he makes his way on through here through turns 1 and 2. If you're wondering about the distribution of the GTPs this season, we do have quite a Cadillac Acura dominated field. There's quite an even split between them. Those are the 2 main classes. We do have a couple of BMWs in the form of Rudy Witzland and also Hegesetter, and then we do have one Porsche 963 in the form of Paul Joseph Klist, and well, the Porsche 963 of course, a car which are very fast in its own right, and we're looking forward to seeing plenty from the German machinery, and do the same with the BMWs. But it does seem as though at the moment it's the American machines that are pushing for the very top. It's right now Sherwood in the Cadillac, definitely showing how it's done in the GTP class, and it's Cadillacs on pole in both classes provisionally currently with 3 minutes left to go. But as we look to Rudy Witzland here, a bit of BMW machinery for you, and well, the first ever GTP/LMDH hybrid that was added to the iRacing service, and well, since then it has definitely seen some fine tuning at the moment as he makes his way through turns 8 and 9. But Vincent here right now battling with some front end oversteer there. You can see the car very twitchy. In fact, rear end oversteer translating into lesser stability in the front end of the car. And as he comes through turn at number 11, well, right now getting himself set up here to potentially find a bit more time as he comes down into the braking zone for turn at number 12. Well, as he rolls his way on through, I think it's going to be a setup for one more lap here from Witzland, and see if he can find a way to go even faster compared to his previous best as he makes his way out of the final corner. We're going to jump on board here with Witzland as he takes us around for a lap, and here he goes. As he heads down towards turn number 1, heading to an exit of 180 miles an hour, looking to his left-hand side and braking down from 188 miles an hour all the way down to second gear, but misses braking point, and the car straight lines on. And for Witzland, that might be all that's written for this qualifying session as he tries to get the car turned around. And the reason we say that is that he will get around in time for another qualifying lap, so long as he makes sure to get up speed soon and doesn't make any further mistakes. But the problem is in the fact that these cars, they do have battery modes available to them. Remember, these are hybrid power cars. They've got V8 engines, but they're also supplemented by quite a potent battery. And well, when you go into qualifying, particularly when you go for that ultimate qualifying lap, you want the car to be the ultimate attack mode, and that drains a significant portion of the battery, and well, it's hard to regain that battery immediately. It's done over time. So Witzland there with a lock up into turn number 1, and may have just cost himself the opportunity. But meanwhile, speaking of opportunities being seized, Paul Busby goes P1 in the GTP Pro class for effect simulations here on a 13.749. It's only 200s faster than Joe Newman's time in the battle well, the Cadillacs at the front, and right now we've got a top 3 in the GTP Pro class that's separated by only 7.5 hundredths. It's Busby ahead of Newman, ahead of Wilson, with only a minute to go in this qualifying session. Well, right now, can anybody else go further than them? It looks so. Most of the field are starting to make their way into the pit lane, but Busby staying out there as long as he possibly can. He wants to make sure that he stables his pole position into the tarmac, and meanwhile, Newman in the pit lane, so he won't be able to get another lap in, and Wilson is out there. What is Wilson doing? Well, the other Effect Simulations car inside that top 3 right now on a lap. Is he improving is the question, as Busby has improved in Sector 1, personal improvement. Wilson's improved in Sector 3. It's the fastest Sector 3 we've seen all day so far, and as he comes on down into the last couple of corners here, well, right now Wilson, I think, feeling as though he can go a little bit faster and perhaps make it. And Effect Simulations 1-2 on the grid. Bit of oversteer there as he comes out of turn number 13, and as he makes his way through the right hand here. What's it going to be to complete the lap? Time is called on this qualifying session for the GTPs. It's a GT3 traffic jam down at the end of the pit lane. They're all eager to very much go, and Wilson improves, but it's not enough. He misses out on the front row by 300ths in as the GT3s now start to make the way out the pit lane, and the lead cars making them out will be the Tiki SimSport machine. I'll let Joshua Pratt. We do have a couple of GTPs still out there in this session, albeit as we now transition over to the new qualifying session. It does mean for all of our drivers we move into GT3 qualifying now, and well, who will be the fastest GT3 class machine? We'll have to wait and see, as we do have a couple of GTPs that are still wrapping up, including Rudy Avitzlan, as we do look to hear the GTP AM driver making his way through the last couple of corners. I think Austin William Campbell's not going to improve based on his sector time so far, but Avitzlan could move up from P6 in the GTP AM class here as he comes out of the final corner and will head to the timeline. And what's it going to be for Avitzlan here? He moves up to P5, he dethrones Rellerstone, and that's a good qualifying lap there at 15.310, enough to move him up one more place for all is said and done, and he'll tow to the pits. But now we are definitely in GT3 territory, ladies and gentlemen, more familiar territory for those of you who are used to watching GT3 racing. But still, what are the differences between the cars are beyond perhaps the obvious in terms of the amount of aerodynamics on the cars. Well, one of the key things that makes the GT3 class machine much more comfortable to drive is the fact that these machines have both anti-lock braking systems, or ABS, plus also traction control systems, TCS. Meanwhile, our prototypes, our GTP class machines, do not have ABS, so therefore braking has to be done and modulated purely by the driver. So if they push too hard on the brakes, they can end up locking up the brakes. Meanwhile, a GT3 class machine, you can be a lot more aggressive on the brakes, albeit if you lean too much into the anti-lock braking system, depending on how sensitive it's set, it can cause the brakes to lock up. Indeed, our drivers want to find a fine balance with the amount of ABS they run in terms of how sensitive the system is, but you can lean much more into the brakes in these cars, and you can be naturally more aggressive. In a way, they're likened to essentially road supercars, which can be thrown about at much higher speeds around here, as we see the long line of GT3 class machines all getting themselves set up here for the first qualifying laps. And well, when you do have a grand total of what is in the region of 30 GT3s getting set up for qualifying, you can understand why it looks like a traffic jam as they all make the way into the last couple of corners. That's John Davis caught up right at the back of all this. He's waiting eagerly, and the problem is as well, when they come out of turn 13 this slow, they're actually going to lose the time for their first qualifying laps. You want to be coming out of turn 13 full throttle. You do not want to be tucked in behind another car waiting for them to go on the loud pedal. And as they make the way down right now, charging up towards the braking zone and going on through, while drivers doing everything right now. And well, Buzz races there in the Twitch chat, talking about the fact he's got no idea where the lap came from. And what a phenomenal lap there from Paul Busby for pole position in the GTP category overall, and in the Pro class of GTP in particular. And will we see any surprises in the GTP Pro or GTP AM class? That's what we're waiting to see, as our first times are starting to hit the board, and Martin Tilling puts the marker down on 24.598. Well, I suspect we're going to be shattering that 24.598 before the session is done, with 12 minutes still to go. And did a very seamless transition from the GTP to the GT3 class qualifying. Great to see, and all the drivers right now very eager to carry on that momentum. As we can see Bagawe there going into P2 and Mead in a 24.668, and well, the Belgian driver here definitely right now, I think, feeling as though he can make some further progress. He makes his way on around. And in terms of the distribution of the G3 class machines this season, we're seeing a lot of Porsche 992s, and we're also seeing quite a few Ferrari 296s. Understandable given the fact that these are the latest cars available in the GT3 class. We also do have a couple of Audi R8 LMSs, the old 2015 machine, and one in particular, the Protect Motorsport driver, and we couldn't be without him on the grid. It's none other other than Ryan Moles, and right now trying to show that the Audi R8 has still got some life in it. Keep in mind, of course, that Audi withdrawing from all classes of racing other than Formula 1 as of 2025, and therefore right now they'll support their customer teams, of which ProTech Motorsport definitely one of those customer teams looking to shine high, but otherwise the Audi R8 gradually heading towards retirement in the real world of motorsport, and right now ProTech Motorsport keeping it very much live with Ryan Moles at the tip of the spear here as he makes his way down towards turn at number 7, and this Audi could definitely be one of those cars that is going to catch drivers by surprise today, in the fact it is a very technical car. It loves circuits with direction change and also medium and low speed corners, and that's exactly what you have here at Indianapolis. It's not as strong on the straights, and to be fair to Moles, he's only got one big straight to really worry about, and that's the run out of turn 14 on towards turn 1, the start finish. But other than that, Moles may just be able to pull some surprises here, particularly if he's able to put it on pole and just break away at the start. But as he makes his way in towards turn at number 12, we also do have a couple of BMW M4s, and this naturally brings us over to a returning face and one of the rising stars of season 11 of the GT3 League at UKSimRacing, and that is Tiki SimSports Satinder Dinsa as he makes his way on through turn at number 1, one of the runners up in the AM class the season 11 of the GT3 League, but today he's here and he's joined by his brother as well in the form of Shaminder Dinsa, and we look forward to seeing how they both get on as they make their way on around. And here he is, and how you can differentiate them in the timing tower as they're both running TT Simsport cars. Well, right now Shaminder using the Ferrari 296 versus his brothers in the BMW M4, but also the fact you can see that right now Shaminder in the timing tower does have the SH for his name rather than just an S, which refers to Satinder. So that's how we differentiate the two brothers. But as they make the way on around, we do say hello there to B. Hay, or Brandon Hay, not in the YouTube chat, in the Twitch chat I should say. So used to referring to the YouTube chats, we have transitioned to Twitch for this season, and as he makes his way on down towards turn at number 1, well, right now Shaminder definitely doing everything right as he makes his way on around through turn 1 and 2, and we'll get on board with one of our GT3 class drivers shortly, and we'll have to wait to see who's coming on through to get that on board with them. I believe it may be the Australian Adrian Kukulis as he makes his way on through into the Porsche 992 we go, and let's go around for a lap. He's making his way in towards turn number 1 and braking here, and with the 500-yard ball coming all the way down in second gear as he makes his way into the opening corner. Now through turn number 2 up to third gear, nice and early, short shift there, having to feed the throttle as he comes through turn number 3, and now up towards turn number 4 from fourth gear, braking nice and early down to second gear, just teasing the car towards the apex as he makes his way out. In fact, now keeping the car to the right from turns 5 and 6, we can go flat out through the quick S and on to the mid straight. Now the Porsche makes its way on down there, bringing it immediately over to the right-hand side, building up to 6th gear, top gear in the car, and looking to his right-hand side for his brake marker, and braking at about 370 yards from the apex of turn 7 down to 2nd gear. Nice tight apex, exits the corner left-hand side to go into turns 8 to 9, holding the throttle there in 3rd gear, and now making his way in towards turn number 10, staying in 3rd gear once again. A nice run the direction change there. The Porsche demonstrating its ability, its manoeuvrability in these medium and low-speed corners, and now flat out through turn number 11 in towards 12 he goes, and this is where we could see the Porsche potentially come a bit loose under braking, given the fact you've got to quickly reset the steering input coming out 12 into 13, and now going into left hand here, and decides to go in to the pits instead. Kukulis there, Freiners for an error as he makes his way on through into the pit lane, and will right now get himself set up very shortly for another run, but just gradually bring it on through. And meanwhile, as we do see here, what is Rhys Saunders coming on through, the team year 1 driver. Well, he's made his way in to what is the Ferrari 296, and we'll previously see the BMW M4, and this is the man everybody's got their eyes on when it comes to going racing, particularly on strategy. For some reason, I don't know how he's found it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a little bit of snap oversteer there coming through turn number 14 as he made his way off the long right-hander. This is the man who can make a fuel tank seemingly last forever compared to everyone else, in the fact he can take significantly less fuel rather than his peers and still put in absolutely phenomenal lap times. And Will Saunders right now, wherever he qualifies, don't count him out in making quite significant gains when we go racing, for the simple reason he definitely knows strategy like no other, as he makes his way through turns 1, 2 and up towards 3, 4. Our drivers getting themselves all set up right now for the next round of laps, and in terms of who's the fastest out there at the moment, well, in the top of the GT3 category, GT3 Pro in particular, it's Anders Myra here as he makes his way on down in towards turn number 7 in the Racing Lab esports machine, and looking very comfortable behind there with the 296 at the moment. And he's got 2 tenths of a second advantage over Geraldus Jotatas, who's running the Porsche 992. So it's definitely going to be an interesting mix of Porsches and Ferraris at the top of the standings in the GT3 Pro class, it would seem. Meanwhile, in the GT3 AM class, it's Oyvind Breivik as we see him making his way on around here. Also for Racing Lab Esports, and as he makes his way on through it in the Ferrari 296, he's currently 2 tenths faster than Mark Johnson. And well, what a change this season for Mark Johnson. The fact the man typically associated with the Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine, he's decided to drop that German machine and go to its alternative in the form of the Porsche 992. And well, I think this might be a wise investment from Johnson. He's taking the Mercedes platform as far as he possibly can, as he makes his way around right now, definitely at the helm of what is the rear engine rear-wheel drive machine, the ultimate cornering machine, and looking very happy at the moment, albeit only 300ths faster than Lawrence Marsh. And will Marsh being that close, it definitely is going to set us up for a thriller in terms of who's going to be on the front row of the GT3 AM class as he makes his way up towards turn number 7. We've also got some other names and some surprises already in terms of drivers who are a bit further on down the order, including what is, I do believe, Thomas Barjuk in the Rexy machine, and well, as he makes his way up through turns 4, 5 and 6 here. A livery which was inspired, of course, from the livery that was featured in the World Endurance Series by one of the Porsche teams there, all down to, I believe it was the children of one of their drivers who were asked to put a livery together, and they did it based on dinosaurs, and that's why this car is affectionately known as Rexy. And Rexy does have a female partner in the form of Roxy, albeit not on this grid but in the real world. If you were keeping up to date recently with the World Endurance races at Fuji, you will have seen the pink version of this car going around to the sister car of Roxy. And it's great to see. It always makes me smile when I see this car on the grid, and Barjuk doing us justice here as he makes around and backing off there and letting one of his peers come on down into turn number 12 and get himself set up for another lap very shortly. But as he does so, 5 minutes on the clock still, and well, I think we owe you a lap of the circuit in the all-new Ferrari. And with Simon Hartley here making his way on through turn number 14, and as he does so, we're right now looking to try and find some time to improve, and we jump aboard here with the 6-cylinder Ferrari 296 as it powers down towards turn number 1. Gets ready for the braking zone and looking for his left-hand mark there, and braking at what will be about 450 yards from corner apex. Now the brakes and tyres warmed up second gear as he comes on through and into left-hander at turn number 2. Cars coming out the pit lane have to stay clear, and as he makes his way through 3, building up the throttle here up into 4th gear, or will he know, in fact he stays in 3rd, goes for a very late apex but out brakes himself there and down to 2nd gear, but he struggles to catch the car. He'll carry it on with the lap all the same, I do believe, as Hartley makes his way through turns 5 and 6, but a critical error there, that's going to upset the first sector, there's no doubt about it. Going into the second sector, he'll have to make it up in the second half of the lap now. Sectors 3 and 4 are going to be critical as he comes into the braking zone here for turn number 7. Now is his braking point as he comes beyond the 450 yard board and coming into turns 8 and 9. A direction change here, and I think the confidence just not quite there in the car now as he made his way on through there. Definitely very gingerly making his way over the curves, but now bringing himself back up to speed. I think this will be a setup for another lap. We'll stay on board for the remainder as he comes up through turn number 11 up towards 12, bouncing up onto the bank, and you'll notice there how the car's shaken as he goes from a very flat road surface to a very heavily cambered road surface by that transition, and that can upset the balance of a car, particularly if its ride height is very low. And that's something we have to watch out for under race conditions, where drivers may hit that bump a little bit too aggressively and it could end up causing to go to the wall as Hartley makes his way out of the final corner. Well, he was on course to improve the lap Baseline was doing it in sector 1, but sector 2 really spoiling the run for the TE Sport driver, and in the end he'll have to wait another lap now to try and improve from P13 in the GT3 AM class as he comes down to the braking zone. And as he does, we say hello there to Solos to 1450, who says stream looks crisp, and we appreciate the feedback there from you, Solos, and we're glad to have you tuning on in. And we also say hello there to Racing at the Void, who is saying about the fact that we've seen some phenomenal qualifying in the GTP Pro class, and we're glad to have you with us Racing the Void. As meanwhile, our drivers here carry on now, 2 minutes left on the clock, and well, we heard earlier about the fact that Anders Myra had definitely seemed to be on course for pole position in the GT3 Pro class, but this man in the form of Jotatas has decided to stick his foot in it and say, no, you're not, I'm now taking pole position. He's 2 tenths faster compared to Myra, but the gap between the two of them, well, it's 2 tenths at the moment, but 2 tenths can mean anything in the terms of the laps. Well, it's going to be Jotatas making his way into the pit lane. Oh, I think that's his qualifying session done and dusted, unless he's going to have some very quick way of getting through the pit lane, but it's a long pit lane here in Indianapolis, so therefore I think Jotatas is confident he's got this done. And can Myra find a way to improve? He's going slowly there, coming out of turn number 13, so deciding to set himself up for this lap. So he's going to have one more lap at his fingertips here. He won't have enough time to get any more in, so he's going all in on this one as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, and onwards he goes to potentially try and snatch back that pole position, the GT3 classification, as he comes down towards turn at number 1. And as he does so, well, some of you may have noticed there's a car behind him in some very familiar colours. It's the Indian Motorsport colours, and well, who could it be behind the wheel? Well, if you guessed Hekon Gustad, you would be right. Coming back for this season after losing his title defence in Season 11 of the GT3 League, racing in the BMW M4. But here he is in the Ferrari 296 and looking to go all in versus the likes of Eric Rosev, the defending champion of the GT3 class, and also looking to mix things up with the very best there, but trying to take out the Italian platform for this season and get into grips with it. And well, Gustad always a driver to watch out for. If he doesn't do well in qualifying, albeit that is a rarity in that, and right now P6 in a very close field. You can see there between Reece Saunders in P4 and what is Pratt in P7, it is only 600 between P4 and P7, which stands right in the middle of that sandwich, and that goes to show you how fast these drivers are and how close it is in lap times right now. But Jatatas definitely seems to be the man who is needed to be beaten here, and Mark Johnson on pole in the GT3 AM class currently on a 25.011, and was the drivers make the way on through. Will anybody be able to improve? John Davis will be one of the first drives to head to the timeline here as he comes on out. The final corner, he is on an improving lap. He's currently P10 G3 AM. Can he find a way to move his way up the order by a sizable margin? He moves up to P8 on a 25.619. That's qualifying complete. Checkered flag out. Does anybody else improve from what we can see? Can't see anything at the moment. We are seeing improving lap times for the likes of Barjut, but it's not enough to gain places. I think we may be at the end of the improving potential in qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, as we got Casper Brantner making his way to the timeline in the GT3 Pro class. He's currently P16 in a 19-car class. Moves up 2 places to P14 on 25.138. 2/10 off of Marvin Cruz, and well, the old duty cars driver there behind his teammate Marvin Cruz. But I think that may be most of it said and done. As we see here, this is a bit unfortunate for Dean, so being caught up behind what is there, Mark Johnson, as he makes his way through turn 13. He's on an improving lap. Johnson was into the pits, so right now Satinder Dinsa looking to try and find an improvement, but has that spoiled things? He's 2/10 off a pole. It could be a lap that moves on to the front row GT3 AM, but my gut feeling says he may have lost some time in that final sector, and as he comes across line, indeed it's not an improvement in the end. We'll have to wait and see whether he's a bit frustrated by that, but I mean, we've still got a couple of drivers out there looking to finish off laps, I do believe, as we have got currently where Steiner Sani making his way on around and turn number 11 in towards 12 in the BMW M4, and staying with the German machine as he makes his way on down. And can he find a way to improve here? I don't think so. I think all these drivers are effectively in on in-laps right now, given the time that has passed in the overtime of this qualifying session, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, taking overall pole position in GTP Pro pole, it's Paul Busby for Effect Simulations. GTP AM, it's Sam Sherwood who will line up P4 in the overall grid. We then have Herodas Jatatas who takes GT3 Pro pole, and in the GT3 AM class, it's Mark Johnson who has taken AM pole position in the GT3 category. So some new names definitely shining. Anders Meyer, one of the big names, and also Aaron Vergawe, who's just behind him by what is 1.5 tenths. So the newcomers definitely mixing up with the veterans, and it's time for us to head to the grid for our first race of the season. So our drivers make their way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up for the first race. And as we can see, it's Paul Busby on pole position for Effect Simulations in the GTP Pro class. He's joined on the front row by Empire Motorsport A's Joe Newman. Behind him on row number 2 is Joshua G. Wilson for Effect Simulations, who's joined by the GTP AM pole sitter of Sam Sherwood for Protect Motorsport. And on the third row of the grid, it'll be none other than Jonathan Hitchin for Symphony Esports, joined by the privateer of Cy Anthony. On row 4, it's Austin William Campbell for Symphony Esports, joined by Alex Hill for Tiki Simsport Copper, with Brandon Hay at the GTP AM driver starting P9 for Newbridge Esports, and the top 10 being rounded off by Matt Strand for Racing Lab Esports Car X. In P11, it's Alexander Tremino McCallison for Racing Lab Esports Moser, who is joined on the 6th row by Ryan Davies for Tiki Simsport, and then behind him on row at number 7, it will be Ben Cullen for Effect Simulations and Billy Bob Ray for Empire Motorsport A. On row number 8, it's Rob Armstrong for UKSR Bell, who's joined by Rudy Avitston for Racing Lab Esports KTM, with David Relliston for Tiger Racing Team starting P17, and P18 it'll be to a newcomer of Alden Hegesetter for Racing Lab Esports Moser. The top 20 is completed by Aaron Beaver, the privateer, and Olympus Esports' Paul Joseph List, with Herodas Jatatas being your GT3 Pro pole sitter there for Over Limit Racing starting P21. It's Racing Lab Esports Moses Anders Meyer who joins him on row at number 11, with row 12 being completed by Aaron Vergawe for Shore Competition Esports and Team Year 1's Reece Saunders. On row number 13, we have Martin Tinnin for TK Simsport Tyre and Ignium Motorsports Heckengrestad, with Joshua Pratt for TK Simsport and Protect Motorsport behind in the form of Ryan Moles on with row number 14, and then the top 30 being completed by Thomas Aspal for Racing Lab Esports Car X and Racing Lab Esports KTM's Eric Brozev join him in P30. Adrian Kukula starts P31 for Short Competition Esports, joined by the privateer of Darren Sharples. And then we do have on row number 17 Marvin Cruz for Old Dutton Cars and Mark Johnson for UKSimRacing at Mansell. And then we do have Oyvind Breivik, who starts P35 for Racing Lab Esports KTM, joined by Old Dutton Cars' Casper Brotner. And behind them on row number 19, it's Lawrence Marsh for Downforce Racing, who is joined by TK Simsport Tyres' Satinder Dinsa. And then it's Peter Conks and Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Hill, the two teammates who complete your top 40. On row number 21, it's Daniel Pays for Old Duty Cars, joined by Nicholas Rice for Dirty Rice Racing. And then we do have behind them James Conley for UKSimRacing Hill, joined by John Davis for the Wrong Stuff in P44. Kerry Kokoran starts P45 for Downforce Racing, joined by Steinar Sunny for Racing Lab Esports Car X P46. And then on what is row number 24, it's John Maloney for Mowgli Racing, joined by Thomas Barget, the privateer P48. And then on row number 25, it's Neil Smith, the privateer, joined by Andy Skinner for TK Simsport, with the final complete round grid being made up of Simon Hartley for TK Simsport Tower and Shaminda Disa, I should say, for TK Simsport Copa. And then last but not least, starting P53, although I believe there may be technical issues with the car and we may not see him on the grid, John Watt, the privateer, if he's able to make it, will start from the very back of the grid. But an absolutely full grid, ladies and gentlemen. And as our drivers make their way on around here, well, we are not too far away from going green flag racing already, in the fact that we are behind the pace car right now, and it's to Paul Busby who will lead the field up behind the safety car and getting very close indeed back to the back of the Porsche Cayman 718. But as he gets himself set here, everybody ready to go racing. We can see G Zenhai there, or what is Greg Zenhai in the Twitch chat saying Tiki Live on the pit wall. Indeed, all the drivers absolutely set. John Edo's also shooted in here, and well, they'll be looking to this man, Alex Hill, who definitely has got his work cut out for him, starting P7 in the GTP Pro class, and he'll be looking to try and do everything he can in order to carve his way through the field as quickly as possible. But he's going to have stiff competition in the form of the fact he does have Cy Anthony and Brandon Hay for company. And a bit further back, also talking about the TK Simsport drivers, well, it is going to be a long road for Shaminda Dinsa as he makes his way on behind the GT3 category. But you can notice there on the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen that we do have quite a separation between our classes already, and the GT3 spacing themselves out quite comfortably and giving themselves at least a 5 but not a 10-second gap there. I think it might be a bit too much of a gap for future rounds, but definitely good to see they're playing it safe rather than dangerously in the opening race of the season. But as they make the way on around here, we look back to what will be our pole sitter, and well, he's only moments away. He's only a couple of quarters away from taking this green flag race in the GTP class, but definitely has so many names right now looking to battle the way through. Billy Bob Ray being another one to watch out for, the Scotsman. For Empire Motorsport A, he's got the company of Alexander Truna McCalson and Ryan Davies, and it really is going to be a showdown today of Cadillac versus Acura to start off this season, and both cars looking very strong in this qualifying session. The Cadillac's having the edge, it would seem, at the top level, but in the midfield, very close between them. And watch out for the BMWs of Riddiovitsen and Alden Hegerset. They'll both be itching to come on through, but as they make the way now into the last couple of corners, well, our GTP class race is about to get underway, and it will be Paul Busby who takes our drivers to the green for 60 minutes of racing. And remember, the GT3s do not start until they make it to the start zone, so therefore we'll look to their race start as well in due course. And it's lights out and away we go for the GTP class racers as they roar their way down towards turn number 1. V8 machines are plenty in the V6 of the Acuras, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1, Busby getting a great start. Joe Newman side by side with Joshua G. Wilson as they head into the braking zone. Wilson on the inside here, going all in on the move. It's going to be a bit of contact between the two of them as they make their way on through, but both drivers giving each other just enough space to survive, and as they all make their way through the opening corners. Meanwhile, we look back to the GT3 class lead as Herodas Chatatas takes them away across the line, and right now nailing the start there. As you can see, everyone's splitting it up, trying to find an opportunity to get a clean run down towards turn 1. Meanwhile, look at what is there Heckengrestad on the right of your picture, trying to stay close to the wall, being squeezed there slightly by Reece Saunders, who's 3 wide, and in fact makes his way between the two there. And where's Heckengrestad and Alvin Vagawa? That's brave there from Saunders, making the Moses manoeuvre stick right at the start. And behind Ryan Moles here, side by side with Martin Tinner as they make their way up towards turn number 4. But as they make the way on through, we've got a car go around already, and I believe that's Martin Tinner who's gone around at turn number 4, slightly off camera there, as you can see in the middle of the grass last patch, and as our drivers come on through the S sequence here, going on to the first short straight. Meanwhile, we look from them back up to the GTP class, and well, it's been a relatively calm start to what is the GTP class race, and we can see Billy Bob Race still trying to make some progress here with the battle behind Alexander Trino and Mikkelsen, as well the GTP AM driver definitely itching to make his way past some of the GTP pros, and he just can't find the way on through right now. But meanwhile, Paul Busby at the lead of this field, he's already 2 seconds clear. He's running away with the lead this race as they make the way down towards turn number 1, once again charging the way and through. And as they do, well, Ray's going to look up the inside here versus one. That's Ben Cullen going up the inside. Let's correct ourselves there. The effect simulation try and making the plays, and will Ray in the end just backing off and letting the GTP Pro driver make his way on through. But meanwhile, looking back towards the GT3 class, let's not forget we've got 2 classes here, and well, you can see Pete Cox right now. He's battling with Daniel Payne and Kerry Kokorin. Payne's in front, Kokorin behind, and as they make the way onto lap number 2 themselves, with the GT3s having a relatively good start. The same for the GTPs. Fantastic start to this race right now. Only a couple of small incidents to know, but as they all serpentine their way down towards turn number 1. Everybody right now trying to get their way into the battle as they make the way in towards turn number 1 once again. And coming down into the braking zone, of course, we're yet to get to the point where the GTPs will definitely be looking at trying to cut their way in amongst the GT3s, and that's where the racing gets very delicate in the fact as we look back here to Casper Brotner making a move up the inside at Simon Hartley to gain position. Well, we do have a bit of a moment here. Oh, goodness me, we've got a car off into the gravel, and that is Tinder Dienster, the TU Sport Tower driver, who's gone around at turn number 4. Now, was that aided or was that of his own volition? We'll try to understand that very shortly, but definitely a difficult start there. And well, we have had a couple of incidents at TU Sport. I've definitely been at the front and centre of those incidents at the start of this race, and we'll get an immediate replay of what happened to Martin Tillin on lap number 1. And here is the replay of Tillin. So as he made his way through turn number 2, side by side with Moles on the apex curve here of Frey, comes off onto the brakes, and I think there, a bit of contact with Moles. He couldn't quite get the car to set on the braking. I think he'll argue was turned there by the contact with Moles, and well, whether Moles turned in on him or not, that's a hard question. That's one for the stewards to take a look at post-race. He was able to rejoin in the end, but he's rejoined a long way down the order. We then did have a further incident for what was Thomas Barjok, and let's take a look back at what happened to the Rexy driver here, the privateer. Was he made his way through turn 6 to plenty of apex curve, way too much apex curve, and kicked the rear of the car around as he dropped off the curb. And we also had an incident for Andy Skinner a little bit later on, and well, the car there just picking up damage from the open lap and crawling to a halt on the run down towards turn number 6. We can't quite get what happened there, but we return right at prime time right now to see almost 4 wide here as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and that is going to be Lawrence Marsh, Neil Smith, Steiner, Sally and Martin Tillin all batting for position. In the foreground, it's now Lawrence Marsh battling side by side with Daniel Page. Contact there, Marsh goes round, cars splitting left, right and centre here, and Marsh gets himself out of the way immediately, and will brilliant race there for all of them to safely negotiate the situation. That could have been a disaster, but well avoided from everyone as Martin Tillin continues to try and recover from this race right now, and he'll want the GT3 AMs to have more moments like that for the simple reason that they'll start to break one another up, and he can start picking off one by one, and that's exactly what he needs at this point in the race. But as they make the way up towards what is turn at number 7, further battling here to come, as it's going to be Tillin looking for the move. Meanwhile, Rice versus Smith. Rice on the inside for Dirty Rice Racing, and as he comes on through under braking, side by side here versus Smith. Smith's not giving up as he makes his way for the inside-outside switchback, going through turns 8 and 9, and as they make the way towards turn number 10, Rice being made to back off here and look for another opportunity. Goes to the undercut coming out of 10. It's a nice move from Rice, and as he comes on around, well now Smith's going to be on the outside, squeezes Rice to the apex, but Rice says, I'm here to stay, and Smith goes, okay, I'll let you go. And as they make the way to turn number 12, Nicholas Rice making that move count, car around in front, and that is, I think, that's none other than Tilling's been involved in a bit of contact there. We're trying to understand who that is who's gone round, and we'll get an update on that very shortly. I think that's Steiner Sani, in fact, has been turned the wrong way around, not Tilling being involved in that one. But meanwhile, that tries coming down towards turn number 14. We do have now the GTP starting to intersect with the GT3s, and this is where the racing is going to get more intense, because now the multi-class aspect of the racing really kicks up a gear, and it means we're going to be seeing those battles being brought back together, alternatively separated for brief moments, and this is where our drivers will need to be on the nuance. But meanwhile, Casper Brotner, the GTP Pro driver, he's still trying to find his way on around what is there in the Dienster, but right now he's being held at bay as Joe Newman has to go the long way around the outside. Meanwhile, look at this from where side Anthony, and Anthony absolutely boxed in here by GT3s, and I think almost at risk of locking up and going into the back was Dienster's car. Nothing he can do about that, and as they make the way up towards turn number 7, charging away on down right now into the braking zone, where everybody's scattergunning here in terms of the classes of cars, and Alex Hill battling side by side with Sam Sherwood into the braking zone for turn number 7. Sherwood around the outside, the GTP
GTP AM leader, still keeping a good number of the GTP pros at bay as they all queue up behind, and we ride on board and look back from the rear of Sherwood's car, and that's Hill, that's Hay. They're right behind them. Brandon Hay trying to stay with Hill in order to have an opportunity to battle with Sherwood here, but right now Sherwood is having the traffic forward left right, so it goes round the outside. Always Martin Tilling there, that's brave stuff, goes right off the inside. A Swift car off the road. I think there's been a little bit of miscommunication between cars as they all make the way on through, and Ben Cullen's now getting into the mix here as he looks to try and battle with Brandon Hay. In fact, he's found his way past Hay in towards turn number 12, and as they make the way on around here, there's still more to talk about as Alex Hill leads Cullen and Hay down towards turn number 1. Hay's coming back here on the inside, and as they make the way in towards the braking zone, well, can Brandon Hay find his way through? Here he goes then onto the anchors. He's going to try and pick up one at least, and the Newbridge eSports driver coming back. He wants to have a clear shot of Sherwood. He does not want to be forced backwards, and as they come through turn 1 into turn number 2 and 3, now they've got Wiz Rice there, who's just going to hold his line on the inside. They've been told that the GT3 class drivers just hold your race line, that the GTPs negotiate you. That's the way the rules work in multi-class racing. The faster class has to do the hard work, and as they make the way down the mid-straight, Brandon Hay getting back ahead of Cullen, and Cullen right now, I think, will be scratching his head and saying, well, why is he fighting me so hard? And for the simple reason, right now Hay very eager to go past Hill and then go after Sherwood, but Alex Hill struggling with a lock up there, and this is really now starting to upset the momentum of what is Hill as well. Meanwhile, looking back up to the lead battle in the GTP class, this is Joe Newman battling hard up the inside of Bosby. He goes! It's a very late move up the break. He pushed on, I think, by the fact of pressure from Anthony and Wilson, but the top 4 in the GTP class altogether, Newman can't quite make it count, and as they make the way through turn number 14, they charge on around right now. Nose to tail they go up towards turn number 1, and Newman right now, he's got the speed. Bosby's had a poor run. Newman's going to come on through, and as they head down towards turn number 1, he's going to be back on the brakes. Look at Wilson as well. He's right in behind Newman. He's pinning Newman to the inside, and as they head onto the brakes, it's 3 wide, and Wilson goes through as well. Newman goes overly deep. He gets the car stuck in time. Meanwhile, St. Anthony tries to go around the outside of all 3 of them. He can't find it, and it's the back off as they make the way in towards turn number 3, and it's going to be Busby and Wilson. The 2 effect simulation drivers are fighting each other now, and Newman's ahead, but in the battle of the Cadillacs right now, there's nothing between them as they make the way up towards turn number 7, charging around through, and this is only the opening 10 minutes. We're not even a sixth of the way through as they head down towards turn number 7. Onto the brakes they go with GT3s around them as well, and also catching up to the back of this battle is Sam Sherwood. He's on the back of it now. So as well, I do believe, is Alex Hill. They're all catching up to it. So as a result, we're going to see this GTP class come back together very quickly at the front of the field, but Joe Newman leads it on lap number 7 here. Busby and Wilson, they're still not done. It's going to be Wilson on the inside now, down into turn number 12. Onto the brakes they go, and Busby hanging around the outside to out the inside into turn number 13. Meanwhile, we do see the slight anti there, just being held at bay a little bit. Adrian Kukulas in the GT3 machine, but as they make the way on through, he does clear the obstacle in his path, and now the Welshman trying to stay with his group as we ride on board with the privateer, charge his way down the start finish straight, and as they make the way up towards turn number 1 this time, you can see Scienti pulling out of the toe there, and I think what he's trying to do, he's trying to cool the front brakes down, he's trying to cool those tyres down as well, as he makes way into the braking zone, but it's a poor opportunity here, in the fact he does have Pratt on his left-hand side, the T-Sim Sport Ferrari in the GT3 class, not making life easy for any of them, but again, this is multi-class races. Why does he squeezed to the apex there by Eric Rosev, and I think Rosev not expecting Anthony to go for it, and Anthony, in other words, pretty much saying, look, I'm coming through whether you like it or not, but right now these GTP drivers, they are pushing the limit in terms of having to force their way past the GT3s, and I'm not sure the GT3 drivers are going to like it, but I think right now they'll just simply say, well, it's tough luck if you don't like it. There's other words we can fit in there, but that's what our drivers will sound to their visors, as right now the Protect Motorsport GTP and leader Sam Sherwood watches this all play out. He's caught up behind Austin William Campbell as they make the way onwards. Meanwhile, not to forget, we do have a GT3 class that's battling as well. Here is your GT3 Pro leaders in the form of Joe Tartas versus Myra, and Myra taps the rear of Joe Tartas' car under braking into turn 12. But look at Reece Saunders. Meanwhile, as Myra backs off to let Joe Tartas recover, Saunders comes on through, and Reece Saunders right now is just picking his way through one by one. This is absolutely tactical at the highest level, and as they make the way to the start finish straight, Saunders may have an opportunity to go for the lead. Tartas knows it's coming. He defends but brings it back over to the centre of the road. Saunders stays in the tow here. We're seeing the battle of the Porsche versus the Ferrari here, and the straight line speed of the two cars very similar as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and as they come on in, which Tartas right now goes a little bit deep, nails the defence into turn 2. Saunders just simply cuts it back and says, I can be all over you in a flash. But the problem is now they have Brandon Hay, who's going to try and weave his way up the inside of the pair of them, and Saunders in, here, turns in only to find a faceful of Liz Hill there looking for the run and gets the run done into turn number 4. So Saunders made to go backwards slightly, but look at this as well. Hekon Gestad, remember what we said at the start, do not count this man out. He will find his way through, and right now he's up to P3. He's got Anders Myra behind him, and as they head down towards turn number 7, well, up the inside of them, I do believe goes Matt Strand, or at least up the inside there of Anders Myra. But meanwhile, Gestad given an opportunity here to breathe a little bit as they make their way through turns 8 and 9 and come up towards turn number 10, but rolling the way through. Meanwhile, Joshua Pratt battling with Eric Rosev, the TE Simsport driver, looking for a move on the RaceLab Esports machine as they make their way into the right-hand return number 10 as they come through a bit of track limits cut there for Thomas Aspal. As we saw him make his way over the curve, he'll get a warning for that as they make their way through turn number 11 in towards 12. Pratt right now falling a little bit further back from Rosev, but I think nursing the car slightly and not pushing too hard. Meanwhile, in the GT3 AM class, we can see here, here's your two leaders in the form of Mark Johnson, the UKSimRacing Mansell driver, named after, of course, Nigel Mansell. There is the theme within the UKSimRacing teams on this grid with Hill, Bell and Mansell, all named after infamous British drivers. And Nigel Mansell recently in the news of the fact that he's sending off all of his merchandise. He's having a mass auction with regards to all his racing memorabilia throughout all of his years of motorsport, and definitely looking to get some merchandise worth checking out. But coming back to here and now, why you should be checking this out, well, right now the UKSimRacing Mansell driver leading ahead of Oyvind Breivik, but Breivik staying with him as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And you may be asking at this point, okay, Breivik's right behind, but why is he not pushing the tempo here? Well, first, he's staying this close alone could put pressure on Johnson, as we see Johnson make a small mistake there under braking into turn 1, and Breivik just simply staying behind him and keeping that pressure on. But also too, we are now in the stage of the race where, with the multi-class action aspect starting to kick off, it does mean now it's better to stay with your rival rather than battle, lose time, and then end up having a GTP just slice its way in amongst the two of you and cause that gap to become bigger. Because the thing that Breivik can do, if he feels he's the faster driver right now and he's faster over the entirety of the race distance, he can start to fuel save and potentially make the jump on strategy. But he needs to stay right behind Johnson. He can't let that gap get more than half a second on average. If it does, and he gets a GTP in amongst the two of them for a couple of corners, that gap will expand to at least a second, if not more. And that's the thing he's got to be wary of as they make the way through turn number 10 into 11. And you can see they're picking the right time to let Rob Armstrong go, which is to let him go into turn 11 into 12, and therefore Breivik doesn't lose any time. This is where you have to be tactical as the slower class. If you're battling with somebody, you need to be smart in terms of where you wait in order to go on the offensive versus just knowing when the other car's coming through. And right now staying very close here as they make the way through turn number 14. And coming on through the right-hander, well, right now Johnson definitely keeping that momentum up, but Breivik staying there right with him here, and I think we are seeing the Norwegian driver from RaceLab Esports KTM starting to play the longer-term game, which is just to simply sit down, sit in and wait for that pit stop to come about. And as they make the way in towards turn number 1, keeping the fact we've got 70% fuel tanks for our drivers here, we are expecting those fuel tanks to take the machines at least half the race distance, if not longer, so we may have quite a sizable pit window here in which our drivers may go for undercuts versus overcuts, and well, that will be intriguing in of its own. But as we look from there back up to where's the front of the GTP class in terms of the GTP Pros, we're still Joe Newman who leads, and meanwhile it gets very crowded to the exit wall there of 14, and I think Busby realised that door was getting ready to shut. He just managed to squeeze his way through in time, which the top 4 of Cadillac still as they make their way down towards turn number 1, but this is going to get very, very intriguing as Newman goes on. He goes up 1, goes up 2, and well, I don't think Conley's going to be too impressed by that as there's contact made. Meanwhile, Paul Busby looks his way on through now, a bit of a safer approach there, but you can see Newman has gained 3 attempts by making that move, albeit as he's taken some damage that could upset the balance of the car later on. That'll be the one thing he's worried about, and well, these prototype machines, the GTP class machines, definitely quite sensitive to contacts over the course of a race, and therefore it can upset the suspension of the car. And meanwhile, Cy Anthony here looking for the move on Wilson as they head down here towards turn number 7. But can he find a way through? Not at the moment. And again, I think Cy Anthony right now just simply balances the car. And remember, they do need to keep charging the battery up. If they put the car in attack mode in the battery, and we did have quite a bit of information provided to us, indeed the entire paddock, I do believe by what was it, Damien Lovitt from Civic Esports, providing some guidance in the fact they have balance modes. They also have attack modes here, and it's about when you use the right mode in order to go on the offensive versus recharge the battery, and well, that'll be in the minds of our drivers as well. So the prototypes definitely have a lot more to think about here in terms of how they protect the car compared to the GT3s. And we're speaking of another prototype battle that's building. This is Sam Sherwood versus Brandon Hay, GTP AM drivers. There's contact there, and I believe that is Shaminda Dean Dinsa, who is turned onto the grass and to the wall almost, and I think a bit of contact there with Sherwood, definitely upsetting the two of them, and with Sherwood in particular being able to get away with it and survive, but meanwhile Dinsa in the very unfortunate position of being turned towards the wall as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Sherwood again just finding GT3 traffic when he doesn't want it, and Brandon Hay too close now to really capitalise. They make the way through turn number 3, and it was they make the way through the right hand. There's been an instant further on down the road, I understand, between what is Jonathan Hitch and James Connolly. We'll try and give you an update on that, and also an instant for Simon Hartley and Neil Smith. We have had a couple, we'll get a replay of those very shortly, but right now you can see what it could go wrong. It does go very, very wrong as they make the way out towards turn number 7, and Sherwood right now under huge pressure from Brandon Hay. This is exactly what the Newbridge Esports try needs to do. Is a lock up there from Sherwood. He's not happy in the fly of the car right now. We look back from the rear of the leading Cadillac versus the Acura as they make the way up towards turn number 10, and with the Newbridge Esports machine absolutely looking menacing as they make the way through the long right hander at turn number 11. As they charge their way into one of the breakers over turn at number 12. What can Hay do here? That's the question. It does look as though the Cadillac, the faster of the two cars on the straights here. So if we're going to see the accurate driver make the move, it's going to have to be in the corners, and a mistake forced for Sherwood. Otherwise, right now, Sherwood can just simply stay alive here on the long runs. And as they make the way through turn number 14, you'll see this in emphatic fashion here as they make the way down in the toe. And right now, Brandon Hay is inching closer and closer, little by little, but just not enough as they head into the next braking zone. But again, he can just simply sit in the toe and look to save fuel. But instead, he goes all in on the brakes here. He tries to come in from quite late. Sherwood locks up the front right brake. He'll defend into turn number 2, but Brandon Hay deploying it late and deciding, okay, I'm going to try and pull a surprise here. And Sherwood seeing it coming, and in the end, out-braking himself into the corner bay, working out in doing so, but very close to the threshold there. So we've got a car off into the grass, I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken. That may be, what is there, Rice, who's biked off the road, and I think put himself back on the road very shortly, but definitely a mistake for other GT3 drivers. But as our drivers make the way in towards turn number 7, we take a look back at a few instances, quite recent instances, including one between Simon Hartley and Neil Smith. As they made the way down the start finish straight, Simon Hartley and Smith both trying to contest the same bit. Oh my good lord! And well, that was Jonathan Hitchin who was sent over the barrier into the stratosphere, and that explains the 4-car incident there. And well, in the end, a nightmare moment for the drivers, and well, from Jonathan Hitchin's perspective, the car being launched into what is the pits. Thankfully, they're virtual, but you can imagine a nightmare moment for the drivers. But in the end, between these two, I think Simon Hartley and Smith both just simply trying to squeeze each other on the certain space, and well, when it all goes wrong down that start finish straight, anybody who is behind, they end up in the scene of the incident very quickly. But a nightmare moment for all 4 drivers. Thankfully, as I understand it, they're all okay, although I think they might be a bit shaken from that one, particularly Hitchin. But still, as they make the way back up to speed, it's going to be a long recovery for them. And well, meanwhile, as we return to your live pictures, 3-way battle here for what is, I do believe, P8 in the GT3 Pro class between Aspal, Pratt and Kukulis, and Kukulis at the back of this group. Pratt meanwhile nose ahead here into turn number 8, but on the outside now to the inside of 9. Kukulis meanwhile trying to make the jump here as Aspal makes his way on through. Kukulis on the inside, nice race in between the turn, and Joshua Pratt in the end being a little bit opportunistic early on. They rub doors, the two of them, as they make the way down towards turn number 12, onto the brakes they go, and as they do, who's going to be the one out brakes? The other Porsche very strong on the brakes, but Pratt here saying no you don't, and Joshua Pratt put up a very solid defence here as he makes way through turn at number 40. I think team principal Greg Senhai will be pleased with seeing the TQ Supersport driver doing this very nicely indeed, and right now keeping the Porsche 9 to a bait and beating it its own game, which is braking potential as they make the way down towards turn 1. Darren Sharp will catch up to the back of this for the privateer 777 machine as he makes his way down. We do have the leaders of the GTP Pro class cutting their way on through, and they do so quite nicely there indeed. Meanwhile, further back, we do have a battle side by side here into turn number 12 between what is Dinsa, that's Tinder Dinsa, and also I do believe that's John Davies, the Ferrari, who's ahead right now. Dinsa caught up behind. Meanwhile, look at this from Beaver in the GTP Pro, the GTP AM machine, as he makes his way around the outside in the white car as they roar their one to the start finish straight. That was a very good guesswork there and footwork from Beaver, in the fact that could have gone wrong for him by finding himself in the wrong place at the wrong time and running out of tarmac. And they're all doing very well to negotiate this right now as we head towards the end of the 20-minute mark of this race. But goodness me, Dinsa all in on the brakes once again, comes in from very far back, and the BMW not known for its brakes, but Dinsa definitely trying to show us it can brake very well, and well, as he does so there, missing the lockup with the ABS, and now Marsh all over the back of him, and Marsh up the inside to try to repeat what Dinsa's just tried to do on Davis, but then realised that I think it's a long right-hander turn number 4, and he can't quite do it on that tie line, and that's the problem with turn 4, in the fact if you're on that narrow inside line under braking, you can't make the apex, you have to back off, and Marsh giving us a brilliant demonstration of why turn 4 is such a tricky corner to get right when you're battling, and Dean's just able to use the circumference of the corner to stay well and truly in P5 in class. But as he makes his way up towards turns 8 and 9, meanwhile from them we do have always Anders Meyer into the pit lane already, and I believe that may be a scheduled stop for our Ferrari driver in the GT3 Pro category. So are we seeing a potential undercut here, as meanwhile some further moves being made from drivers? Where Eric Rosev in the pit lane, I believe he's had to be towed, and Paul Joseph Clist involved in a potential incident with him as we're to understand it, as meanwhile Ivan Breivik here tucked in behind Joshua Pratt, with the GT3 AM driver trying to pick his way past the Pro, and does so there with Pratt breaking himself into turn number 1, and as they make the way on through, we do say hello to 84TD in the chat, and well, as the drivers push on here, absolutely roaring as much as they possibly can, and going on through the right hander at turn number 4 up towards 5, Ivan Breivik here looking comfortable in the car right now, but as they roar their way on around here, well, will we see a potential move from Wally Pratt back on Breivik? I do wonder indeed, but I don't think we're going to see it right now, given the gap is standing at 3/10 between them, and that's not quite enough. But meanwhile, looking back up at the front end of the field, it's Newman versus Busby part 2, and this time it's a Busby on the counter attack here, as Newman under huge pressure from the Effect Simulations machine. Wilson just behind Effect Simulations here, having little moments, they're almost as if teeing each other up, saying, oh goodness me, and Newman loses it coming out the final corner, the rear of the car, let's go into the wall. Was there a tiny tap there? I don't think there was. I think there might have been as the contact started to make its way to the wall in terms of Newman losing the car. But I think Busby had the run initially, and then Newman just taking to that grass as they made the way through, making the contact. But goodness me, that was as tight as you could make it. I thought we were going to have another moment of start finish straight there, and we take a look back at exactly how that move was made. As they made the way on through terminal 40, you can see Newman there with a twitch, and in the end, no contact to note there in terms of what we can see on our screen, but Newman definitely having a bit of snap oversteer as he got on the power, and also you'll notice that he had to go around the outside of the GT3 there, and that would have cost him some stability going through the corner, and Busby in the end just feeling more comfortable with the car in such a situation and able to take the lead back on that. So very close there, but I think Busby just making it fairly through, and Newman in the end coming unstuck with a bit of pressure, but as they make the way back up to speed, Newman's down to P3 in the GTP Pro class, and will that damage not too serious to cause him to consider coming into the pits immediately, but I suspect he may be considering an earlier pit stop given the damage on the car. Meanwhile, Sam Sherwood here stuck behind Cy Anthony and flashing his lights there, I think trying to get a message through to Cy Anthony. That's Morse code for I think get a move on, because I'm waiting. Newman is into the pit stars. I look out my contact booth window, he has come into the pit lane, and I think that is a sign that damage is going to cost him dearly, and he will need to bring himself now onto a different strategy in order to stay relevant in this race. But as they make the way on down here in towards turn at number 1, Sam Sherwood still holding on to the GTP AM lead by 1.7 seconds over Brandon Hay, and with the Newbridge eSports driver having a good pop at that battle for the lead of the class, I think now he's decided to focus more on strategy here and just wait to see if the race will come to him a little bit later on. But speaking of coming back to things, we did have a nasty incident for Paul Joseph Clist earlier on in this race, and we take a look back at what exactly happened. Well, this was down the start for the straight for the Olympus Esports Porsche 963, as he made his way under braking into the corner. Well, in the end, if he's got it wrong, it's a lock up there for Paul Joseph Clist, and the car just goes straight on. And, well, in the end, is it just a tow to the pits? It is. I'm not quite sure what the story behind that is, but definitely there for Clist. Something else must have happened to the car. And we also had an incident for Eric Rosev around the same time. And Rosev here, well, the car wobbling from side to side, that must be from earlier contact in some sort of nature, in the fact that he's had to pull the car over the end, and that's had to be towed to the pits. Not a stable car, and deciding to play it safe rather than sorry. And I wonder if perhaps the two drivers had a bit of contact earlier on that we just haven't seen or something. Again, we're not pointing fingers or anything, but that's the only thing I can surmise, given the fact they both decided to tow to the pits about the same time, with similar issues in terms of the car not seeming to want to work the way they wanted it to. But meanwhile, return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. No more speculation. Here's the truth, and that is that right now Paul Busby is your GTP Pro leader by half a second over Joshua Wilson. It's Effect Simulations 1-2 in the GTP class. Meanwhile, as they make the way on through, we look back to what is the GT3 Pro class, and here is your GT3 leader. It's the Lithuanian of Haroldas Chitatas for Over the Limit Racing, and right now definitely racing on the limit as he makes his way down into the right-hander of turn 1. He's still got Reece Saunders for company, but Saunders staying with him as they make the way on around, and definitely right now trying to keep him honest. But I think the number 56 driver here feeling very comfortable with the way things are playing out. As he comes on through the corner here, we're definitely now starting to move more and more into that window whereby drivers are focusing on protecting the car, managing the tyres and seeing how long they can take the car in this race. But I say that Ryan Davis being more under pressure here in the battle for what is P10 in the GTP class between himself and Billy Bob Ray. As Ray looking for the move, can't quite find it. The Empire Motorsport driver just tucking in and back behind. And as they make their way through turns 8 and 9, well, right now nose to tail they go, and Ray staying with him here, and the GTP and driver, well, he's looking to pick up at least one more car on his journey to chase down Sam Sherwood and Brandon Hay. Keep in mind that Ray right now is the best part of what is 19 seconds almost of Brandon Hay, but Ray comes in very hot and just misses tapping the rear of Ryan Davis's car with the lock up there. And well, Billy Bob Ray, I think heart in mouth right now, and Empire Motorsport will definitely have the hearts in mouth. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Davis probably looked in his rear view mirror and just simply almost went to close them, thinking, okay, that's it. But in the end, just about sliding that potential risk of contact, but definitely a close miss between the two, a near miss, we should say. That's the right way to talk about it. And as they make their way down towards turn number 1, well, it's definitely not going to happen again in a hurry. But meanwhile, speaking of hurrying on here, it's Sight Anti battling with Austin William Campbell and also Wilson as they make the way in towards turn number 7. And this is where it gets very difficult. You'll notice that Anti and Wilson both at a compromise inside line in towards turn number 7 as they've got GT3s aplenty. Meanwhile, Austin William Campbell able to hold a much more natural line. In fact, I think the two of them battling hard in the form of Anthony and William Campbell as they make the way on down through what is turn number 11 in towards 12, but they stay as free apiece right now. Paul Busby has just allowed to run off into distance, but to get 2.3 seconds is the gap currently between Busby and Wilson, backed up to 2.5 seconds almost now as they come towards the end of lap 21. As they make the way on around here, we'll see Anti right now definitely in the tow and pushing on. Wilson, meanwhile, I think for Wilson it's all going to be about trying to hold on to that second place spot and just buy Busby time in order to run off into distance. Of course, as a driver, you never want to finish behind your teammate, you always want to beat your teammate. When there's a 1-2 on the cards here, somebody's got to be the rear guard, and I think Joshua G. Wilson, the Swede, has got the opportunity to do that today. As they make the way through turns 3 and 4, looking from there back to Brandon Hay versus Sam Sherwood in the GTP AM lead battle here. No change between them right now. The key differential between them is that Sherwood, the leader of these two, seems to be able to hold the gap quite comfortably. Brandon Hay staying there with it. It's Cadillac versus Acura as they make the way down the mid-straight, and as they head all the way down, we say hello to Sam Congreve there, and welcome to you, Sam. I hope you're doing well. And as our drivers roar the way in towards the braking zone, meanwhile, battle here in the GT3 Pro class between Marvin Cruz and Peter Cox. Cox is going to be on the inside of Cruz, the old dude in cars driver outside on the deep. Meanwhile, Peter Cox there slices his way up the inside, and the UKSimRacing Hill driver doing a manoeuvre that Damon Hill would have been proud of, who recently celebrated his 61st birthday, I do believe. And as they make the way on through turn number 14, the Briton right now gains another place in classes. Next target will be Kerry F. Kokorin as they make their way down the start for the straight. Kokorin 2.2 seconds up the road as they make their way on through. But meanwhile, as they charge their way, we do look back up to our P2 GT Pro driver. As I do know, we do have Linscombe there tuning in, watching her husband charge on in the form of Aaron Devagawe. And as the short competition's esports driver makes their way down into the left-hander at turn number 7, under a bit of pressure from Ryan Miles, the Audi R8 not going away anytime soon. And we're a 5-second gap to Reece Saunders. Well, Saunders definitely running away with the proceedings. And in fact, Saunders taking the lead of this class, it should be said. And with regards to making that move, Ultra Tartus, in the end, I think Harold Tartus coming in to the pit lane. Indeed, he's already taken his pit stops. We'll have to wait and see. Whereas the right call for Tartus to go for the undercut strategy here. But I think the fuel tank is going to go much longer for our GT3 class drivers right now. And Tartus opts to the pit at the earliest opportunity to buy himself space as Vagawa comes into the pits as well. But he is not followed by Ryan Moles, we do believe. So as Vagawa comes on in, meanwhile to lead his first will be run into P2. It will be Moles as Saunders, be 6 seconds up the road, carries on extending his lead in the GT3 Pro class, albeit again it's all on strategy now, and this is where things are going to get interesting. The fact that it could just be 1 or 2 GTP class machines that are making or breaking an opportunity here for say Moles or Saunders to be leading this race, or will it be Jatata still? We'll have to wait and see. But as our drivers make the way on through, we also say hello there to Dan at Blackwell in the Twitch chat. Welcome to you, Dan. And well, as our drivers push on the GT3 class, me on the GTP class, it's Wilson versus Anthony, as we do have Busby in the pit lane, so he's decided to go early. Meanwhile, Wilson here holding on versus Anthony, and Campbell just behind by 2.5 seconds. And as they make their way through 2 in towards 3, right now the Swede here, he's definitely going to try and keep Anthony behind as long as possible, but also Busby, where is he going to come out of the pit lane? That will be the question. Given the fact he's pitting quite early, but we are at the halfway point of this race as of now, as the clock strikes 30 minutes, still 30 to go plus the final lap. And as we do see Wilson and Anthony here sizing one another up, we jump on board with the P2 driver of Sight Anthony as he comes on through turns 7, 8 and 9. Now rolling his way on through here, the key thing for the number 27 driver is the fact that if he feels as though he can make the move, he's got to make it sooner rather than later, because when we come into these strategy windows, the longer you spend behind the driver now, you could potentially gain that time if you feel you're the faster driver by simply pitting and then going for that undercut. But meanwhile, you can see that in the rear view mirror at the top of your screen, making the move past Darren Sharples, who goes a little bit wide there out of turn number 12, just getting used to the wash of the rear end of the GTP class machines with a greater aerodynamics. And as Anthony makes his way on through, it's going to be very close, a bit of contact there with Wilson as they negotiate their way up past Kukulas, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1. Well, Kukulas innocent in that situation, just carrying his line. They make the way on down, but Anthony too close at the wrong time to look for that potential move, and he'll be kicking himself right now under his visor. He'll be muttering to himself, why did I have to get close then and not slightly later on the straight when he could have gone for the move? The 27 driver here, I think he's ready to pull the trigger on this move, but he's just got to pick the right time in order to do so, and I wouldn't be surprised if he considers pitting at the end of this lap, because he's losing time here behind Wilson, and right now Wilson is just digging in. He's entrenched himself into that lead position, and as they make the way up towards turn number 7, I think Anthony's going to look around the outside, trying to set up a cutback as a minimum. Wilson defends, goes on into the corner, but Anthony again just not quite able to be able to set it up. It's a short run into 8, 9 and then into 10. And as they come on around here, right now, Sight Anthony definitely, I think, feeling some frustration of running this close. He just can't simply find a way on through. Trevino McAllister's into the pits from what was at the time P7, the GTP Pro class. He's coming back out in P8, so therefore we've got a couple more pits to come folding. And in fact, Busby will also be making his way on through. And I think Trevino McAllister missed his pit box slightly, as I'm to understand it, and that's why our time tower said he was leaving the pit lane, when in fact he's only recently just made his way into the pit box. But more pit stops coming up, including Ryan Moles, who's just made his way into the pit lane from P2 in the GT3 Pro class. So it is pit stop season now, as we see a flash of lights there from Wilson saying to James Connolly, look, I'm coming through, don't do anything. And Sight Anthony getting very close once again, and Sight Anthony does right now make my hands stand up on end. I can tell you that when he gets that close under braking. But then again, we know that Sight Anthony, a very strong and smart driver. You only need to look back to, I believe it's the season finale of the GT3 League at season 8, I want to say, in his infamous battle with Sam Congreve, one of the finest battles we have ever seen at UKSimRacing. But meanwhile, looking back here to what is Billy Bob Ray, looking up the inside of Ryan Davies, finally getting a move done for overall P9 in the GTP class. And as they come down into turn number 1, on the outside there is Peter Cox, and Cox right now still there in sliding turn number 2, and Ryan Davies, the TE Sport driver, had to back the car off slightly and not quite able to find a bit of space to work with as they make the way on through. But as they head all the way on through what is turn numbers 5 and 6, and charging their way on around now up towards turn number 7. Well, meanwhile, we look back to Joe Newman here, switching back to the inside versus Hegesetter as they head on down. And remember that Joe Newman has already taken a pit stop. Meanwhile, Alden Hegesetter on the right of your pitch has yet to take a pit stop. So that's why Newman's flashing his lights. He's trying to say to the GTP AM driver, look, there's no point us fighting, let me go. And well, Hegesetter there noting that and immediately stepping clear, and a smart move from the pair of them there as they make the way on through. Sight Anthony into the pit lane, by the way, as they look at my Conte booth window. You can see that on the time and down the left hand side of your screen as well. And as he comes on down, I think he's lost quite a bit of time behind Wilson, and Wilson right now may have just carved an open track for Busby to be able to retake the lead of the class. But we'll have to wait and see when the strategy's all said and done. But meanwhile, looking from them, we look to Waving Breivik. And right now, the Ferrari 296 driver in the GT3 AM class, he's battling it with Matt Edmondson for P3. As Edmondson, they're going with a lock-up into turn number 4. And what we don't normally see lock-ups with all that smoke coming out of the brakes in the GT3s, given the anti-lock braking systems. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of our GT3 drivers are running the ABS system quite light here, given the fact that whilst we do have some heavy braking zones, they're not that common, and therefore trying to get away with less ABS interference. But of course, the more and more you turn it down, well, as a driver, then you've got to modulate the brakes more yourself. And I think Edmondson there just kicking up a bit of smoke when he didn't necessarily need to, because they make their way through turn number 9 into 10. An intriguing battle where they've got Marvin Cruz just in front, but Neil Edmondson goes a bit deep out of 10. Breivik's going to be on the inside. It's going to be 3 wide for a brief moment as Cullen looks up the inside of the pair, and Breivik's going to have the run here in towards turn number 12. And now will Edmondson try and cut it back to the inside? No, he doesn't. He stays on the outside, and Breivik moves up into P3 in the GT3 AM class. As they come down through turn at number 13 and onwards towards 14 they go. Well, these guys yet, well, in fact, they have both pitted, it should be pointed out, and Edmondson by comparison having a much shorter pit stop. Only, what is a 16.5-second pit stop compared to Berwick's 23.8. So therefore, I think Edmondson right now perhaps gambling on not changing as many tyres or not taking as much fuel, and feeling as though he can fuel save his way to victory in this race, which you never know, it could work out. But meanwhile, we look back to the GTP AM lead battle, and now up the inside he goes. That's Brandon Hay going for the move versus Sam Sherwood, and he gets it done, or does he? Sherwood will immediately try and come back here. Flash of lights from Sam Sherwood. I think that's trying to distract, and this is a bit more to the story than meets the eye, but it looks as though Sam Sherwood being past fair and square. Oh, goodness me, a bit of a late move there from Brandon Hay. Sherwood cuts around the outside. They've got the runoff area to battle, and as they make the way on through, Sherwood locks up, gets the place back. Now Hayes going to look around the outside to inside. It's going to get very testy between the two. Further contact between them, and will both try to push it hard, and Sherwood locks up into turn number 10, but I can imagine that may have been galvanised somewhat by the contact through turns 8 and 9. Well, Sherwood loses out as he takes the escape road here and will rejoin underneath the oval, but right now I don't think he's going to be too happy with how that's played out. Brandon Hay would argue he did it firm but fair. I think Sam Sherwood may feel as though it was anything but fair in terms of being slightly turned, but still, we'll take a look back at that very shortly, as meanwhile Alex Hill tucked in behind there, and Hill right now to safely negotiate the Protect Motorsport car as they bring themselves up to speed and going on to another lap. We take a look back at that entire battle sequence. So it all started in the run down towards turn number 1, and Brandon Hay going in on the brakes into the opening corner. Lock up there from what was, I believe, Brandon Hay, although we can't quite confirm that. And as they made the way through 2 into 3, Hay's up the inside here, lose out a bit on the circumference of the corner, and as they make the way through, Hay up then getting the move done, gets himself in a bit forceful, but fair, I would say. And then flash of lights there from Sam Sherwood as they make the way on out of the corner and making their way up towards turn number 7 now. And you can see Hay moves over when Sherwood's taking a look, but it's on the limit as they make the way down to the braking zone. Both of them eager. Sherwood will lock up there, but managed to get it done back to the inside of turn at number 8 and then into 9. And this is where Hay really playing at the small space available. And then Sherwood, I think, outbraking himself into 10, trying to hold on to the position. Well, if that does go to the stewards, I'd say it's on the limit between the two of them, but that's why I'm a commentator, not a steward, ladies and gentlemen. I think Brandon Hay feels like he got it done fair and square. I think Newbridge Esports will be giving him a pat on the back right now, but do let us know what you think about that one. But I think they both were on the limit, both drivers there. I think they were giving each other just as good as they were given from each other, and Sam Sherwood not coming out on top. And meanwhile, Brandon Hay finding his way into lead the GTP AM class as they make the way on around here further down the road. Rudy Witzland will right now P5 in the GTP AM class. He's chasing after Aaron Viva, and will both of these guys yet to pit as they make the way through turn number 10 and 11 and charging their way up towards turn number 12 they go. And going in towards the braking zone, lock up there from Beaver, goes a little bit long, and you will start to see these lockups in the GTP class in particular later they go into the race. And you may be wondering why we see more lockups as time goes on. Well, there's a number of factors here. The first one being that naturally as the car is raced more and more, track temperature is coming up all the time, and with our drivers out there. And to give you an idea of what that track temperature looks like at the moment, we're here on the right side of your screen, you can see that track temperature standing at 38 degrees centigrade still, pretty much where we start off in the practice session today. It's really cold, it's a scorcher on circuit. And well, when you add that with the fact that tyres are wearing down and those brakes are getting very hot from the close battling and the manoeuvres the drivers have made earlier on, it means the brakes become more and more susceptible to micro lockups. And those are the nasty ones. The heavy lockups that you see, well, those, well, you get used to in the end of the fact as a driver. You know when you're going to lock the brakes up completely, but it's the micro lockup when you brake into a corner and the brakes initially lock, and you'll see those little puffs of smoke that come out the car where it's an initial lockup and the driver releases the brakes slightly but needs to put them back on in order to get the car stopped through the corner. Those are the ones that do the biggest damage to the tyre life, but also the feeling of the car, for the simple reason you start to, as a driver, question how much brake force you can actually apply the next time you go into that corner, and that is where the time is lost. But as Witzland here continues to chase down Beaver, well, right now they've got a whole host of GT3s on the outside. Contact there between the Witzland and Marvin Cruz, and well, between the two of them now, I don't think there's much else could be done, but Witzland makes his way into the pit lane, so then it's not really a loss of time. Beaver stays out, so Witzland decides, okay, enough's enough, I need to come in and I need to give myself clear track, and that may be the right thing to do, to be fair, for the Norwegian driver from Race Lab Esports KTM. I think being in that group for much longer was only going to cost him time, as meanwhile we look to Marvin Cruz, old dudes in cars, joining the team as of this season, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, he's got a teammate behind him. of what is there. Well, it's the old dude in car. Well, in fact, no, he's at the back of this group. My apologies. He's got in front of him Matt Edwardson as he looks at the inside of the GT3 AM driver. Cruz being a pro there, as indicated by the blue sash on the door, as he makes way in towards turn number 4. Edwardson battling side by side into the corner. Both of them here eager to hold the space over one another, but then Cruz gets it done around the outside. Nice move then from Marvin Cruz. And right now the German driver trying to chase down next time, which is Martin Tilling. And Tilling, for context, is 10 seconds up the road. As we say hello to Dawson at 1701 there, who has subscribed with Prime. Thank you, Dawson. We do appreciate that. Meanwhile, we do look back to what is Eric Rosev, who's battling with Daniel Payes here. And right now, these two, well, Eric Rosev definitely having a difficult first day in the office in the Multiclass League here today. Not quite up where you'd expect to be. And a lap down on the G3 Pro Class leader of Darren Sharples. But keep in mind, we have still got what is a whole medley of strategy to play out. Darren Sharples and Peter Cox at the head of the GT3 Pro Class have yet to pit, whereas everybody else has done at least one pit stop. And Horodus Jatatis has lost out significantly. Meanwhile, Anders Meyer is the effective leader of the G3 Pro Class right now, with what is Heckelstad just behind him. So therefore, we are seeing this interesting dilemma where either drivers are going for a 13 to 16 second pit stop or a 23 to 25 second pit stop. That surely has got to be a tyre change and some extra fuel going in the car. And I think it might be the drivers who've gone for the shorter pit stop. They gain track position, but they're going to lose time later on in the race with the tyre wear on the car. The drivers that make the way on around it right now. Eric Rosev here falling back behind Daniel Payes, and Payes gaining the upper hand here as they make the way through turn number 13. And we're looking at from them, we look back up to Alex Hill, the TT Sport Corporate driver, who right now still has Sam Sherwood immediately behind him. And well, Sherwood absolutely stubborn. He's like a bad rash that doesn't go away, and we can understand why right now. Sherwood trying to make up for lost time, trying to chase down Brandon Hay, who's 8 seconds up the road, and Hill here pinned to the wall as Sherwood opens the door up massively and says, okay, I'm going to give you some racing line here, take it if you want it. But meanwhile, Hill defending quite close on the inside. Lock up there again from Sherwood. Sherwood is struggling on those front brakes into these heavy braking zones. I think the Protect Motorsport driver, how hard he's had to push the car early on in this race to extract a lead over Hay and then fight with him. I think Sherwood right now definitely needs to be considering coming into the pit soon, because that car, I would imagine those brakes are going to go soon in terms of we'll see a full loaded lockup, and when it does, he's going to lose a lot of time when the car carries forward. But as they make their way down to turn number 7 behind still, we do have what is Billy Bob Ray. He's the best part of 40 seconds behind. Another lockup from Sherwood, and that car is struggling. Those tyres, I think, need to be looked at by the team, because right now that 171 is definitely not comfortable under the braking zones. But as they make the way on around, well, we do look from them to a little bit further down the order in the form of Rob Armstrong. And Armstrong here battling with Joe Newman in terms of the GTP class. And will these two are fighting one another. And we'll show you what is the overall top 35 here. And we're mostly consisting of what will be the GTPs in the top 17. And then you have GT3s further on down. And well, as we can see in particular right now, particularly that GTP class, well, we've got Brandon Hay into the pit lane. So he triggers off the first of the top 3 pit stops in the GTP AM class. Right now, Armstrong and Joe Newman going at it. Only at what is about 2-3 tenths between the two of them here as they make the way on around, and both drivers very eager to make some more headway as they roar their way into towards the next braking zone. But again, these interruptions with the GT3s will just be costing them a bit of time, and when we're sitting for Armstrong, it's not going to give him an opportunity to really get stuck into this fight until later. But meanwhile, speaking of getting stuck into battles, here is in the GT3 class, you can see Herodas Jatatis, who right now behind Heckel Gestad. Well, the battle between these two is for P3 in the GT3 Pro class, and keep in mind that Gestad taking a much shorter pit stop by comparison versus Jatatis, and therefore I think Jatatis here with a better tyre life and a bit more fuel in the car, he now really wants this move on. And the Over Limit Racing driver with only 17 minutes to go, he's got to do it the hard way now. He was leading for quite some time, but he's got a long way to go to close up as they make the way in towards turn number 7. Looking up the inside here, it's going to be a late round of the brakes. Gestad turns in, Jatatis is there, and Jatatis and Gestad make contact. They both go round. It's a disaster for both of them, as you can see. Gestad immediately kicks the car into a tailspin. Nice one there from the Motorsport driver to get it turned immediately, albeit I think relying on Jatatis' stricken car to act as the buffer zone, if you will, for other cars coming through to, because they both span into a line effectively coming out the corner. But I think both drivers there in their battle, and well, in the end, both of them thinking they had the right to the apex line and nothing between them. But right now it's going to cost them both time, and Reece Saunders as a result has actually got through ahead of them now and moved up into P4. So really, they've cost each other time, and right now Jatatis' race is going going backwards, not forwards, as time trickles on. Meanwhile, a bit further back towards Aspal here, stuck behind what is Ryan Moles. And well, for Ryan Moles versus Aspal, I think Moles will have the car that's a little bit more flexible going on to the end as they make the way out of turn number 14 up towards turn 1. Oh, goodness me, I can see one of our prototypes there having a bit of a near-miss moment as Kristad versus Jotatas Part 2 kicks off down the start-finish straight here, making the way into turn number 1. Kristad defending hard. Oh, it is going to get very, very dicey, and around goes Aaron Beaver and Kristad as well. And, well, I think Kristad had his eyes more on battling with Jotatas as we see coming out the pit lane there. That was Wilson having to take evasive action, almost cutting to the inside grass out of the pit lane. And, well, for Kristad, this race is going from good to bad to disastrous in very short order as he brings himself back up to speed. We've got some smoke there into turn number 4, car off the road, and that's Steinar Sani who's got it wrong, I do believe. When that's not Steinar Sani, we have had, that was Toss Aspal, we should correct ourselves, who's just gradually bringing himself from the yard onto the tarmac once again, coming across the grass, but doing so very gradually. But meanwhile, Steinar Sani, I'm just trying to make further progress, and Aspal in fact having to be towed to the pits. I think there might be a problem with the car, and as a result his race may be going no further today, or if it does, it's going to be a long way down the road. But as our drivers make the way on around here, our drivers pushing on as much as humanly possible, and well, meanwhile we look up to your race leader overall, and this is in the GTP Pro class, Austin William Campbell. Now we should point out, ladies and gentlemen, that for Campbell and also for Cullen, Alex Hill, Ryan Davies, the top 4 GTP Pro drivers, they have yet to take their pit stops, so therefore right now they are ahead on track but not necessarily on strategy. We should also point out that we have had a retirement from who we believe would be the effective race leader of Effect Simulations, Paul Busby. He has retired from this race, and well, that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure. And CT1 Design will put in a message there in the Twitch chat to Paul Busby asking what's happened. We're not quite sure of the story there, ladies and gentlemen, but what we can tell you is this blows the race right open right now, and I think this is the man, one of the 2 drivers who you're potentially looking at has been the GTP Pro winner here today in the form of Joe Newton for Empire Motorsport A, but just behind him is another driver who would love that opportunity as well in the form of Joshua G. Wilson, and the Effect Simulations driver now will look to try and pick up versus his rivals. They make the way on down, and as they roar the way into their next corners, well, we'll have to wait to see what happens between the 2 of them. But meanwhile, we can get a replay of what happened to Paul Busby, and in fact we'll get it very shortly as they make the way on through turn number 10, and here is the replay. This occurred in fact about 9 laps ago. So this is coming down into turn number 12. The Effect Simulation trying to make his way on through into 13. And as he did so, oh goodness me, and contact there with the number 99 car, and that was one of our GT3 pros in the form, I'm not quite sure who that is, if that's the 99 or is it the number 90. I think it was the number 99. In fact, we're trying to get up down that, but Busby being turned on around, and with that the car picking up damage, and that was the retirement there for the Effect Simulations driver, and that explains the story right there and then. It's a shock to the system, and indeed right now it's a shockwave that is going to be felt up and down the paddock, given the fact that as the racing charges on here, we've still got plenty to come, but right now it's going to be a Wilson versus Newman run to the finish. But as they make the way in towards turn number 4, we've got smoke up there, and that is, I believe, a car going right off the circuit. We're not quite sure who's gone wide at turn 4, but we know somebody definitely has found the way off. I think that was Daniel Pays who's made an error there, so more and more Sight Anthony has also had a major incident recently, we could tell you, so therefore there's more coming unstuck here for our drivers before all is said and done today, and we've only got 12 minutes to go, and still the GTP drivers yet to come into the pits to the front of the field. We know they've got to spit at some point. It's going to be a big question of when they come on in, not if. And meanwhile, Brandon Hay, chased after Sam Sherwood, these 2 still battling for what we believe is the effective lead of the GTP AM class, but Sherwood has got back ahead of Brandon Hay based on strategy. But keep this in mind, Sherwood's pit stop 12 seconds, Brandon Hay's pit stop 22 seconds. Hay switched it to the inside, it's a very late move on to braking, he goes all in, and it's side by side as they come through. They've got Aaron Beaver in front of them, and Beaver, who's yet to pit right now, finds himself really being perhaps one of the deciding tokens in this battle as they make the way through turn number 14. In the fact, as he just tries to hold position, but it's a scramble down the straight, and Brandon Hay, how on earth he got that car stopped, I will never know. It was a liberal application of the brake pedal as he flashes his lights there to say to what is, I do believe, Sherwood. Well, in fact, that's not Sherwood, that's Sherwood making the move on what is Rob Armstrong trying to go in the inside to outside, but Brandon Hayes got another chance at this, and I think Sherwood right now has gambled on not changing tyres of some description in order to make time on Brandon Hay, and he's going to be as absolutely obstinate as possible as they make their way through turns 5 and 6, and Brandon Hay right now almost with that opportunity to take the lead back, but he's going to have to fight for it with both hands and wrangle it as hard as possible out of his rival. And right now Sherwood is not done, but as they make their way out of turn number 7 in towards turn number 8, coming on through there, and through turns 8 and 9 they go. We can see up there that right now Brandon Hay just trying to make progress as Armstrong steers clear, and meanwhile a bit of an elbow there to Anders Myra, the GT3 Pro leader, who just tries to stay out of danger as they make their way on down in towards turn number 12, and goodness me, as they make their way for the break zone, another look up from Sherwood there. Meanwhile run wide from Armstrong, but he brings it back on, but definitely coming towards the end of his stint in the car. In fact, makes his way into the pit lane with immediate effect. We've got 10 minutes still to go, and this GTP win is definitely on the cards right now for either of these drivers. But coming back to that message from Dawson earlier on in the Twitch chat in terms of I hope I'm doing well, I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing fantastically in this race. It is incredible. I'm sure you all agree, but I think my vocal cords aren't going to be doing very well after today, as it's a lock-up for Sherwood as he comes down to one. Hay goes around the outside. He tries to turn in, but he finds Sherwood's there, and will this time Brandon Hay, I think, will look back at that one afterwards and think, why did I turn in as early as I did? I think he felt that Sherwood had already been overtaken, but it was quite the opposite, and Brandon Hay loses out, and Sherwood right now starts to run back off into the distance. But the problem for Sam Sherwood is he hasn't got the tyres to lap consistently compared to the pace that Hay can deliver. So right now Sherwood's got to hope that with Hay battling so hard, he's taken the life out of the car. Alternatively, we could see this battle once again. You can see them both in the same camera shot. It doesn't stop here, ladies and gentlemen. It's not over yet, but meanwhile, as they push on, pit stops now kicking off for a good number of drivers. Meanwhile, your race leader over of Austin William Campbell, he's still going. He's yet to pit, and well, as he makes his way down to the braking zone, he's got to come to 11.5 second margin of Ben Cullen. But where's this going to put him in the big story, given the fact we are expecting quite a few pit stops to come? And well, we've not got long left in this race, only 9 minutes still left on the clock. But as our drivers roar their way on around right now, we say hello to Dang at 46 there in the Twitch chat. Great to see so many of you interact with one another in there. And as our drivers make the way down the start for this straight, well, right now it's the calm before the storm. And meanwhile, further on down the order, let's not forget outside the lead battles, we've still got plenty of battles to be unsettled elsewhere. And well, Kukulis right now, Adrian Kukulis looking for the move on Heckel Gestad, and this is a P6 in the GT3 Pro class, in a Pro class that has definitely seen quite the shake-up today as they make the way on through turns 13 and 14. But as they come on around here, the Australian for sure competition eastwards, he's close, but can he find a way to make one move before all is said and done? And when it's not just any kind of move, he's looking at a reigning champion in GT3 class racing. But Kukulis, to be fair, no slouch in his own regard, and as they make their way down the start finish straight, the Porsche's getting closer and closer here in the tow. But has he got enough in the brakes to look for it? He thinks about it, but there's not enough yardage in which to get the move done as they make their way through turns 1 and 2. As they come on around and up towards turn number 4, making their way into that right-hander right now. Also, we say hello to Stuart Pearson there in the Twitch chat, who says Newman is flying in the GTP Pro class. Indeed, he's just set a new personal best of the race, but it's still Kukulis versus Gustad that's on our screen. And we jump on board here with the short competition esports driver as he charges his way up towards turn number 7. He makes his way down into the braking zone here. Can he find a way on in? I don't think he can. Still that gap staying at 4/10 as they make the way on through. But in a new twist, ladies and gentlemen, we have had Sam Sherwood, I think, have to retire from this race, albeit I'm not quite sure why we've seen him retire from Sherwood, but we've seen him drop out of the lead of what is the GTP class. We'll try and get an up down that very shortly. In fact, he's made his way into the pit lane quite recently, so I think that might be for damage on the car. But Sherwood has, as we understand it, retired, as that's gone very wrong for Rudy Witzland, who goes sideways there across the front on this GT3 class battle. Goodness me, I think hitting the apex curve at turn number 12 way too hard for the car's measure. As meanwhile, this battle takes a brief breather. We take a look back at what exactly happened to Rudy Witzland. Making his way on through there, and well, having to go around the outside of Heckel Gestad and under braking, coming into the corner, and well, I don't think there was contact with Gestad's car. I think the car just going too high onto the curb. either way, it's gone very well for the race now. Esports KTM drives, he brings himself back up to speed, but definitely a surprise set and not a welcome one to be sure. But meanwhile, we return to your live racing pictures, ladies and gentlemen, and a new development. We've had Austin William Campbell come into the pits, and you won't believe this. He's now leading after the pit stop, the GTP Pro driver. He's back out with a 10.8 second lead over Joe Newman. Newman is flying out there, I can tell you that right now. He is the fastest GTP on circuit. Austin William Campbell, with only 6 minutes plus the final lap to go, is out into the lead with a 9.5 second pit stop. It's an incredibly short stop. The drivers who went long in the GTP class, they pulled us some magic here, and right now Austin William Campbell from Civic Esports could be on course to net the first win of the season in the pro category of the GTPs, and what a way to do it if so. And this shows that perhaps the overcut is the key to success at such a tricky track in order to overtake it. Well, as we look to the 555 car here as it tries to push on, Newman and Wilson are 10.5 and 13.5 seconds away respectively. Right now it is a long way to go for Austin William Campbell. It only sounds like 5 minutes past the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, but nothing is certain until you cross that finish line, and it may only be a 60-minute race, but every second that ticks by slowly when you're at the helm. As we see right now, William Campbell just gradually made his way past Mark Johnson. He'll do this very sensibly indeed, knowing he can't afford any errors. He can't afford this race to become upset at any point. But meanwhile, as our drivers make the way on around, Herodas Chatatas battling with Reece Saunders here, and will right now Saunders under some pressure in the battle for P3 in the GT3 Pro class. So they make the way down towards turn number 7. Onto the brakes they go, side by side into left-hander, and Saunders here defends Chatatas, looking around the outside. He's going to commit as they make the way to the inside of turn number 8, and I think Chatatas will have that inside line quite comfortably. He's working to keep the door open. A little bit of contact there. That looks like netco contact between the two of them as Chatatas comes back in on the brakes. There's a tap between them, and there's contact. There's a car around, and I believe that's Austin William Campbell who's gone around. The rear wings come off the car, and as we said, it only takes one moment. We've also got off the road there, I believe that's Ryan Moles. It's disaster, and Joe Newman comes through to the lead with only 5 minutes to go. And well, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, I was already talking moments ago about the fact nothing's certain, and the commentator's curse has absolutely struck right at the end of this race. And right now, Joe Newman will be thinking about that and thinking to himself, okay, I'm now leading again when I cross the line this time. I can't afford to let that happen to me. But as I try to make the way on around, goodness me, right now, Joe Newman, I don't think he's going to quite believe it. I can't believe it, ladies and gents, but I don't think you guys and girls can. But as they make the way down onto his lap number 44, Newman right now in the lead. But again, he's just got to control it to the end. And meanwhile, in the GT3 Pro class, we've got Martin Tillin battling with Peter Cox here as they make the way onwards towards turn at number 1, make the way on down, and well, will he look for the move, or will he simply wait? The TE Sport Tower driver, no stranger to battling with the UKSimRacing driver as they make the way into the braking zone. And well, Tillin looking up the inside here, it's going to feel like a rivalry of old, but outbreaks itself, in fact, sends Cox very deep into the corner, and well, perhaps not expecting it to be like that, Peter Cox, but still, Tillin getting it done, and I think having to, in the end, just simply try and nurse the car away from his rival. And well, definitely a tricky one between as he moves up into P9 in the GT3 Pro category. But as they make the way on through turns at 5 and 6, I think Peter Cox right now falling back little by little. I think there might just be a pace delta between them as Tillin pushing on here. But meanwhile, as we can see Darren Sharples battling as well, we have Joshua Pratt around the outside to inside defending here is Sharples in the 777 machine. The privateer making his way into the right-hand return number 10. I think Pratt falling on behind, but as they make the way onwards towards the latter third of the lap, we take a look back at that instant only moments ago that saw disaster for so many, including Chatatas, William Campbell, and also Ryan Moles. And here is the replay from the blimp camera, and we all started off with a little bit of netco contact through turn number 9 between Chatatas and Saunders. Chatatas comes in hot here into the corner, Saunders is sent on, Chatatas sent round, and then further contact, I believe, between Old Duty Cars machine and what was the car of Austin William Campbell, and then Brian Moles being ejected from the scene of the instant onto the grass there, so a nightmare moment between them. And well, that's what happens with some of the tightest sections of the circuit when it all comes together between them. But as the drivers make the way on through, well, we return to your live pictures here with 2 minutes on the clock, and right now Austin William Campbell missing a rear wing, plus also quite a significant portion of the rear bodywork of the Symphony Esports Acura, I should say, not Cadillac. He's got a Cadillac chasing him, and right now that's JG Wilson who's on the charge here as they make the way up towards turn number 12. And right now Wilson at 9, the runner-up spot is within his grasp. They're 2.2 seconds off of where's Joe Newman, your race leader. We just see cut through the bottom of the camera there as he made his way past Lawrence Marsh. But meanwhile, as these two fight on, Campbell is not going to make this easy, not at all. Knowing that he can still hold on for what will be that runner-up spot as a huge point as they make the way down at the start for this straight. One more lap to go after the one they've just got onto. They'll squeeze another lap in before this is all said and done, and as they make the way on through, we'll have to wait to see how it all plays on. But meanwhile, contact there, and it's contact between the two drivers of William Campbell and also Wilson, and well, we'll have to take a look back at that in due course as we've been caught by surprise with that, as we were just seeing some of your messages there in the Twitch chat about Matt Edmondson, who snuck into lead the GTP AM class while everything else been going on, and well, that's been quite a surprise. But meanwhile, we take a quick look back at what exactly happened then and there between Austin William Campbell and Joshua Wilson. On the braking, and well, Wilson coming in hot on the inside and Campbell turning in, and well, two forces come together and only one will stand strong, and it's Wilson in the end who gets away with the situation. However, that might want to go to the stewards room afterwards, but we take a quick look back to this man who's about to go on to his final lap of racing here today for UKSimRacing Hill, and it is Matt Edmondson who right now has snuck his way to lead the GT3 AM class on a brilliant piece of strategy with only a 60.5 second stop, and right now one more lap to go as he makes his way on down the start for this straight. But as he does so, ladies and gents, but it will be, well, our race leader going down the start for this straight, our overall leader, I should say, of Joe Newman. Well, he's coming on through here to go on to lap number 47. It will be the final lap, given the fact the clock is about to strike an hour in, what will be 3, 2, 1, and now it does strike. And meanwhile, almost being struck in the back there is Newman by Aspal, who misses his braking point and manages to get the car steer clear. But Newman will just be hoping for a calm end to this race after everything that has played out today. It has been dramatic, to say the least, and as they make their way through turns 5 and 6 right now, Newman knows he can't just completely back off because he does have a 5 second gap to Wilson, but that 5 second gap can come down like a crescendo very quickly indeed as he makes his way in towards turn number 7. As he comes through at the left-hander and all the way out towards turns 8, 9 and 10 now. Not long to go for him. And all the battles, all the lead battles now have calmed down. Brandon Hay leads the GTP AM class. GTP Pro, it's Anders Myra. And in the GTP AM class, it is Matt Edmondson with a 6 second gap who's just holding off Oyvind Breivik and gradually controlling the run to the finish line. As Newman makes his way in towards turn number 12, where it was an early battle between him and the drivers of effect simulations of Busby and Wilson, but after taking the lead, he held on for long before losing that lead with contact with the wall coming out of this corner, but in the end, he survived it all, run through the thick of it, and it will be Joe Newman who comes through to take the first overall win of the season and the GTP Pro class by 4.5 seconds over Joshua Wilson as he comes to line. It will then be very shortly at third place for Alex Hill in the GTP Pro class. As he makes his way on through, we do have Austin William Campbell at P4 when it's all said and done, and then it will be Ben Cullen who completes the top 5 of the GTP Pro. Anders Myra comes on through to take the GT3 Pro win, and as he does so, it's a win for RaceLab Esports Moser, and it's also a win for Matt Edmondson in the GT3 AM class for UKSimRacing Hill. I don't think you can quite believe it. And meanwhile, in what is the GTP AM class, it's Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports who takes the win there in the class after that long extended battle with Sam Sherwood. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, we've still got more to cover for, including Adrian Kukulis, who will be your 5th place finisher in the GT3 Pro class. We can't catch them all as they make the way through, but what we can do is catch the ones that are still yet to make the way to the finish line. Heckle Gestaden making his way, he holds off Darren Sharples to the P6 of the GT3 Pro class in the end, with Joshua Pratt just behind them, and then it will be Martin Tillin ahead of Peter Cox who round off the top 10 of the GT3 Pro class. And meanwhile, in what is in the GT3 AM class, Steiner Sani were P7 here today, ahead of Shaminda Dinsa. As meanwhile, as they roll their way on down, we also have Thomas Barja who crossed the line there, P9. And well, a difficult day today for the private in the Rexy machine. Andy Skinner comes through at P12 for GT3 AM, and I think that is everybody to the finish line. But goodness me, what a race from start to finish. A hectic but entertaining round one. You said it, John Williams, in the Twitch chat, and I think you've defined it absolutely perfectly. But as Brandon Hay right now just comes towards the pit lane on his cool down lap, He'll be feeling as though he's done everything he needed to today. There were a couple of modes where he got very contentious between himself and rival Sam Sherwood, but still at the same time, both of them racing firm but furiously against one another. And I think we have got a rivalry to enjoy for the whole season of 10 rounds between those two. But meanwhile, Anders Myhre, a fantastic drive from him, and will top in a podium of what is himself was Aaron Vagawe and Rhys Saunders, albeit we didn't quite catch the pair making the way across the line, but we'll bring you all the results and more very shortly. But a great drive there from the Race Lab Esports Moser driver to take the first GT3 Pro win. And for Matt Edmondson, well, right now just gradually making his way out on a round. He decided to stop at the start-finish straight well on the exit of turn number 1 initially, but as he creeps his way on around, I think he's missed the pit entry, but I think right now he's enjoying the moment here. And well, you may remember, ladies and gentlemen, from season 11 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League, where he picked up the win at Road Atlanta, that win that was a surprise to many. And Edmondson here today nailing it on strategy and definitely making sure it's another win in the bank. But with that, as he looks to do some donuts to celebrate, all of our drivers also into the pit lane now, and well, it's only appropriate we do take you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and well, here they come. So as we have some donuts on display in the background, we do look firstly to the overall finishing positions, and we will just focus here on the podium finishers in each of the overall categories. Goodness me, sorry ladies and gentlemen, my voice almost ready to go. This has been such a race, and Joe Newman in the end taking the win overall in the GTP Pro category for Empire Motorsport A by 4.5 seconds over Joshua Wilson, the Effect Simulations driver. P2, a runner-up there, and nothing could be taken from him. A brilliant race, and Alex Hill round off the overall and the GTP Pro class podium there. P3 for Tiki Simsport Corpa in what was a silent qualifying session, but definitely a loud and proud race for the 276 machine. We'll then come to P7, and that's where your GTP AM winner of Brandon Hay may be found for Newbridge Esports, 26 seconds off the overall win, and he had a sizable gap in the end to runner-up in the GTP AM class of Billy Bob Ray, P11 there, best the rest of the overall category for Empire Motorsport A, and then David Rolliston completing the GTP AM podium of what was Hay, Ray and Rolliston in the Tiger Racing Team machine, and a great drive there from the 262 driver, keeping it smart and keeping out of trouble to finish on the podium. Moving further on down then to the GT3 class, we can see your GT3 class overall winner, Anders Myhre for RaceLab Esports Moser, taking the win over Aaron Vagawe for Short Competition Esports, and Rhys Saunders completing that overall GT3 podium, and with it as well the GT3 Pro podium of Myhre, Vagawe and Saunders. And then looking further down to P27 there, Matt Edmondson, your GT3 AM winner for UKSimRacing Hill, ahead of Oyvind Breivik who finished P28 for RaceLab Esports KTM, and then P31 for Lawrence Marsh, your third place finisher, and a great drive there from the Downforce Racing driver to take the final spot on the GT3 AM podium of what was Edmondson, Breivik and Marsh. And then coming on to our individual retirees, as we continue to look down at the standings there, we did have a number of drivers who did effectively finish this race a good number of laps down. But in terms of those retirees to be looked at, well, we can see there our first confirmed retiree being Paul Busby, P50 there, the Effect Simulations driver, retiring 19 laps in the end, but as he did complete over half the race distance, he will be considered as a finisher. And Paul Joseph Cliffs there for Olympus Esports, retiring 32 laps in the end, not completing half the race distance, and the Olympus Esports driver will be classified as a non-finisher, as will the same apply to the unfortunate Jonathan Hitchens day, the Symphony Esports driver, in that nasty instant going down the start-finish straight and being launched over the pit wall, and will hopefully okay. And John Watson in not able to make it to the grid due to technical issues, and we hope to see the privateer on the grid for the GTV Pro class as of the next round. But now dividing things, I should say, into the individual classes, and we take a look at the individual results here. We start off with the GTP Pro class. As we can see, Joe Newman there taking the win for Empire Motorsport A by 4.4 seconds over Effect Simulations, Joshua G. Wilson, and then Alex Hill completed the GTP podium of what is Tiki Simsport Copa with that top three of Joe Newman, Joshua Wilson, and Alex Hill. Behind him, by the best part of 1.2 seconds, Austin William Campbell for Symphony Esports, ahead of Effect Simulations' Ben Cullen, and Cullen making his way through the field in the end after a difficult qualifying session, and just finishing behind the Symphony Esports driver Austin William Campbell, who you have to feel for absolutely nailed it on strategy, but in the end, for all his hard effort, all undone in the space of the final 5 minutes after a nasty incident at turn number 10. P6 site Anthony the Privateer not quite working out today, the strategy not playing into his hands. Ryan Derry's P7 for Tiki SimSport in a relatively quiet race, 9 seconds clear of Alexander Trina McCalson, and in the top 10 being completed by Matt Strand and Paul Busby, and Paul Busby with that unfortunate incident in the end cost him very dear. And then we can see Jonathan Hitchin as well with that unfortunate incident towards the midpoint of the race, and we're our sole non-finisher for today's racing. We then come on to the GTP AM class, and as we can see here in the AM class, Brandon Hay, your winner by 38.6 seconds for Newbridge Esports over Billy Bob Ray, the Empire Motorsport A driver. Not quite able to keep up with the pace of Brandon Hay today, but still be very happy with that runner-up spot, and a third place for David Rolliston for Tiger Racing Team, and a great drive there, 52.9 seconds off of his rival in the win, but still a third place and a well-deserved one at that. And finishing a lap down, Rudy Evitson and Rob Armstrong to complete the GTP AM top 5 for the Racing Lab Esports KTM and UKSR Bell. And then round off the GTP AM class, Alden Hegitzer for Racing Lab Esports Moser, Aaron Beaver finishing 8 laps down, Sam Shower for Protect Motorsport with that unfortunate incident towards the end of the race cost him dear, and Paul Joseph Clist, our non-finisher, our sole non-finisher in the GTP AM class for Olympus Esports there, retiring with 32 laps still to go. And then coming to the GT3 Pro class. And as we can see here, in the fact, as we do go all the way back up to the top of the standings there, just a little bit shy of looking at the very top of them. Anders Mara, your winner for Racing Lab Esports Moser by 14.3 seconds in the end over Arend Vergawe, the short competition esports driver. And then a further 2 seconds to Reece Saunders there for Team Year 1, who was closing in the last couple of laps, but not quite able to jump into the runner-up spot, and he'll have to settle for P3 today. Honda Shatatas P4, the over-limit racing driver, the strategy not working out, but definitely showing a lot of pace, so therefore he'll be thinking about what he could do to convert strategy into a winning one as the next round. And Adrian Kukulas there, the last finisher inside the top 5 for short competition esports. A 5-second gap to Hekon Gestad, the Ignium Motorsport driver, definitely having some difficulty in this race, particularly in the latter half, with Darren Sharp was battling his way through to P7, and then Joshua Pratt, Martin Tillin and Peter Cox rounded off the top 10 and rounded off all the GTV Pro drivers who finished on the lead lap. Marvin Cruz, P11 at best the rest for old dudes in cars, ahead of Racing Lab Esports KTM's Eric Rosev. Perhaps the biggest surprise from today, Rosev not quite on the pace compared to his rivals, but still it may just be a blip, and in round number 2 we can expect plenty more from him. And then Kerry F. Kokorin at P13 for Downforce Racing, ahead of Casper Brotner, with Thomas Aspau completing the top 15. He was 2 laps down, and then 3 laps down for John Maloney from Mowgli Racing, with Ryan Moles a further 2 laps down there, 5 laps down in total, and then Daniel Pays at P18, and P19 there, the sole retiree, a non-starter, John Watt the Privateer, who we hope to see on the grid for round number 2 and onwards. We then come to the GT3 AM class, last but not least, and we can see Matt Edmondson taking up the win there for UKSimRacing Hill by 8.1 seconds over Oyvind Breivik, and what a surprise there for Edmondson to make his way on through, but definitely there make his strategy count, and Oyvind Breivik I think will be surprised at how that's played out in the long haul, finishing 8 seconds down, and a further, what was 18 seconds to Downforce Racing's Lawrence Marsh, who completes the GT3 AM podium, and a great drive there from Lawrence Marsh ahead of Satinder Dinsa, with Mark Johnson completing the top 5 for UKSimRacing Mansell. John Davis, P6 for the wrong stuff, ahead of Steinar Sunny for Racing Lab Esports Car X, and then Shaminda Dinsa finishing at P8 for the TQ SimSport Copa, ahead of Thomas Bonjour, who finished in the end on the same lap as the leaders, but finishing a lap behind the leaders, Simon Hartley, P10 for TQ SimSport Toa, and the same for Neil Smith, best the rest, P11 the Privateer, and Andy Skinner, P12 there for TQ SimSport, then finishing 4 laps down after showing race leading pace for a good portion of the race, Nicholas Rice there for Dirty Rice Racing, and he'll take the positives from today and inject them into his performance in round number 2, as will James Conley in 7 laps down, and not to be his day for UKSimRacing Hill. But that concludes our run through of all the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen. As the circuit does fall silent after all the fantastic racing. Well, this broadcast is not quite over yet, because whilst the racing may be over, coming up soon will be our post-round interviews with our selected volunteer drivers, and it'll be interesting to hear the perspectives of our drivers up and down the field across the classes. But just before we do cut away to get ready for the interviews, we'd just like to let you know, if you have been enjoying the racing today, and if you ever wondered how you could potentially support UKSimRacing outside of subscribing to the official Twitch channel, did you know there is a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing, is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Demon Tweaks, sim racing coaching provided by Swilly Omida, and also Race Anywhere. And if you head to our website, that's UKSimRacing.co.uk today, and that website will appear on screen very shortly. In fact, here it is. Well, there is a link in the top right corner to our official Discord. And if you click on that link, you'll join our Discord. And why would you want to do that? Well, firstly, if you ever want to be on the grid for any of our events, whether it be a one-off race or a full championship series, it's a mandatory requirement to be part of the UK Sim Racing Discord. Secondly, we've got an absolutely brilliant community, and if you're looking to make your first steps into sim racing, well, you've got plenty of people who will be willing to help you. But thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, in the fact that our affiliates do provide a number of discount codes that are only available on the official UK Sim Racing Discord. So if you do use one of those codes as part of your purchase, well, you're a winner as the consumer, because it does mean that you get a discount on your purchase, but it also means that we are a winner at UK Sim Racing, because of the fact the whole community will benefit, as every penny we make from our affiliate earnings will be invested back into the community to fund future series such as the GT3 GTP Multiclass League, which you've seen today, the GT3 League, the Porsche Cup, and we also got plenty more planned for 2023 and onwards. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. But right now, an extended break can go a long way in saving my voice, and we're going to do exactly that, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready for our post-round interviews. We'll be back at approximately 10 to 15 minutes time. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to conduct our first set of post-round interviews for this season. And today we have 3 drivers who volunteered. We're going to be hearing from 3 drivers of 3 different classes, starting with our GT3 Pro winner of Anders Myra from RaceLab Esports Moser. We'll then come in onto our GTP Pro third place finisher of TU SimSport Corpus, Alex Hill. And then we'll be hearing it from UKSimRacing Hill's Matt Edmondson, our GT3 AM winner, our surprise winner of that. But as we now move on to our first interview of the day, well, without further ado, it's time for Anders Myra to join me in the interview room, and he does so now. Good evening to you, Anders, and what a way to start off your championship campaign, taking the first win of the season in the GT3 Pro class. It looked hectic out there, but a win well earned by yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't expect it at all. I'm doing the official Norwegian championship at the same time as I'm doing this, so the time I have to spend here is a bit not where I want it to be right now. It will be better as the season proceeds, but yeah, it was really hectic. I got a bit of damage from a GTP pretty early, so I had to pit as soon as I could. So I didn't know how that was gonna work out, but apparently it wasn't too bad of a strategy. So pretty happy overall.
Well, indeed, and breaking it down to individual parts, let's start with qualifying. A qualifying session which saw you qualify P2 in class, only in the end being beaten to pole position by what was a couple of hundredths, if that. Qualifying was extremely close, and it looked as though the Indianapolis circuit gave a lot of time at the start of the session, but towards the end of the session, it was very hard to find any more qualifying time.
Yeah, I struggled to find space on the track, to be honest, and the Ferrari is obviously pretty new to everyone, but I'm struggling to find pace in qualifying with it. It's really hard to get the tires in the right window. So, but I managed to put together a pretty okay lap. Sadly, it wasn't enough for pole, but that allowed me to stay behind and a fuel save instead. So it wasn't necessary to have pole, but of course it's always fun to have the pole position.
Almost definitely. And then talking about the race start, we saw at the beginning it looked very hectic down into turn number 1, but you managed to hold on to P2, albeit not without a little bit of contact from some of your rivals into the opening corner.
Yeah, I had a bit of a slow start. I find it better actually to start in third because it's easy to see when the leader goes when you're right behind. But I stayed on my line. I tried to give, I don't remember who it was, but I tried to give him a bit of a shallow line into T1, but he braked pretty early, so it worked out. But yeah, start of the race was pretty close. But I feel like at least up in the front, the start was pretty clean. So it was a good job by everyone to get through T1 at least up there.
Oh, indeed. And as the race went on, a good portion of the race seeing yourself at chasing down Herodas Tratatus, and then the GTP started to lap their way through the field. Of course, once you have the space between drivers start to emerge, it becomes more and more about strategy and making most of the time. I have to ask, did you have a particular strategy in mind with this race, or was it just evolve as the race went on?
I didn't have a strategy when it came to fuel. I started with full fuel, and I hadn't even tested enough to know if I was going to change tires or which tires I was gonna change. But I ended up choosing the rear tires. But I didn't have any other strategies than that. But obviously, I won't say all of what I was planning to do. But yeah, it worked out. I didn't expect, like I said, to be all the way up there, so I have to say it worked out better than expected.
Indeed, and one of the shorter pit stops in the class, only 13.32 seconds stationary, and as you emerged from the pit lane, it looked as though you could really just manage the race for the remainder, albeit with the constant awareness of the GTPs coming on through. I have to ask, with that traffic management and this Indianapolis circuit being quite narrow at most spots, did you find it a challenge?
Yeah, definitely. You have the first section of the track, which is very narrow and twisty, and if some GTP drivers stayed behind through there, but some went on the inside, and if they were close enough, it wasn't that much of a problem. But the final sector is really difficult, both for GT3s and GTPs. I know there was an incident there, but it's, some people say it's the GTP's responsibility to get past safe, and some say that it's GT3, but it's in the end, it's all about using the relative and try to lose as little time as you can by letting the guys pass on the straight instead of waiting until the twisty sections. And I think that at least will help me today, having a bit of experience from Multiclass. So if more people work together, you will have less incidents and everyone loses less time. But that is something that probably will be better in the as the season goes on.
Oh, indeed. And being this the first round of a season, which is absolutely filled with a whole variety of circuits, and we've had some fantastic racing up and down the field, and particularly for yourself today. Round 2 in a week's time, we'll see yourself and the rest of the grid make their way to Japan for the Fuji International Speedway. Can we expect you on the podium once again?
Sadly not. That's my problem, because on every second Sunday I have the official Norwegian Championship, so I will have to spend my time and drive that race instead, as it's something I really want to win. Obviously, I want to win this as well, but I have to prioritize. And I don't know the race after I will be able to race, but then again, I have the Norwegian Championship, and after that, I'm going to Germany to drive at the Sim Expo for Mosa. So it's 3 races that I'm gonna lose out on pretty early in the season. So I got a job to do to try to go for the win, but obviously that's always what I want to do. So I'll do my best in the races I can do to score as many points as I can.
Well, most definitely, and we wish you all the best with regards to the National Championship, and hope that it all goes well there and you're able to achieve victory. And of course, the Sim Racing Expo with Moser also goes well for yourself. But when we do see you back on the grid, it'll be an absolute pleasure to see you taking on the rest of the GT3 Pro field once again, Anders. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Racing Lab, our owners, and Racing Lab Esports, KTM and Mosa and CarX.no for being our partners in crime. And I have to say a big thanks to UKSR and to you. It's the first time I drive in this league, and the quality of the broadcast and everything beforehand and the organization is really, really good. So big thanks to you.
Well, Anders, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room, and congratulations once again on your first win of the season. And it's going to be some time since then before we do see you on the grid once again. But when we do, I think everybody will be absolutely eager to see you on circuit. But until then, all the best with your endeavours in the National Norwegian League, and we hope you can also achieve victory there. And we'll thank you for joining me in the interview room once again.
Thank you.
So hearing there from our GT3 Pro winner today from Racing Lab Esports Moser of Anders Myhre, and what a drive today from the Norwegian, in the fact qualifying P2 in a qualifying session that was very hotly contested and only separated by a couple of hundredths, if that, and then going into the race itself. We saw the scramble down into turn number 1, and talking about the fact that really after that initial battle it turned into a race that was more around strategy, and well, then picking the right strategy but not knowing which strategy to really go with, or didn't have anything planned in mind. And I think just trying to get used to this new Ferrari 296, it's only been on the iRacing service for the best part of a week thus far, if that, and therefore a lot of drivers who have gone with it are learning with it as it goes. I've been hearing rumours down the paddock it's quite an understeer heavy car in the corners for a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car, which does sound like a little bit of a contradiction, but that's the rumour in the paddock. And right now Anders, much like most of his peers, looking to get the most out of the car, and today he found the way to get the absolute most out of it, in the fact going for a short pit stop, coming out in front and just not making any mistakes and negotiating the traffic situation safely in Indianapolis, and a comfortable win at that. And well, when he's back, he'll be missing 3 rounds this season as a minimum, so therefore he will have his drop scores already accounted for, plus also one other score, which will be a 0 by default. But you never know, he could definitely be a threat to the rest of the field, and still he could be champion come the end of it if he is able to carry on a streak of wins that begins today and then will resume effectively as of, I do believe, round number 5 when he returns. But now we come on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, and we now get to hear from our GTP Pro driver of Alexander Hill as he gets ready to join me in the interview room. And well, we'll hear his perspective on what has been a challenging race in the GTP class, but also a great rise into P3 as time went on. And as he joins me now, good evening to you, Alex, and what a race for yourself in the Acura for the GTP. Starting quite a way down the order in P7 in the class, but gradually and safely making your way through to P3. Looks as though it was a race that was hard-earned.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest, I messed up my flying qualifying lap. My second flying lap, I was on for 14 flat, and then unfortunately I wasn't able to repeat that. So I knew I had the pace. I've been fast in practice pretty much here all week. I did pretty well in the endurance race earlier, so I've had a lot of time to get practice in. To be fair though, it was quite a lot busier in this session because of a huge number of cars on the track. So, all that sort of fun.
Oh, most definitely. And speaking of that busyness in qualifying, like you say, not quite able to put together the lap that you were targeting in the end, and also grand total of what was the best part, of 24 GTPs out of the circuit simultaneously at a rather short Indianapolis circuit. I presume it may have made it for a rather hectic combination.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I don't think we had too many issues in regards to finding the space on there because we were all similar pace on our outlaps and going around at broadly similar pace on there. So I think the qualifying was well done by all the GTPs. I didn't see any. There was certainly nobody who impeded me, and I haven't had a chance to watch that fully, but it sounded as if there was no major impeding going on. As far as I can tell, but I'm sure someone's going to show me something and go, I was impeded here now, but unfortunately those things do happen.
Oh, indeed, but still able to steer clear of such scenarios yourself. And then going into the race, it seemed as though today it was going to be a showdown between the Cadillac and the Acura. And, well, the Cadillac seemed to have a little bit more straight line speed around the numerous extended straights here at Indianapolis. But in turn, the Acura looking the better of the two cars through the tighter corner complexes. Does that align with what you were experiencing?
Yeah, it definitely does. The Caddy is just a couple of kilometers an hour faster in a straight line, so you just have to sort of accept that if they're close behind you, you're going to need to defend. So it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. And then when I was behind the Caddies, I just resorted to fuel saving and hoped to make my time back in the pits, which I definitely think I did.
Indeed, and speaking of that balance of strategy, of course, from the faster classes perspective, you're trying to fuel save, you're trying to manage the car in preparation for the pit stop, but then also you've got to try and work your way past the GT3s in a manner that's cost efficient in terms of the amount of time you lose passing them versus that pit stop time that's upcoming. How did you find, say, was the best balance of achieving that? Were there particular ways you're looking to pass the GT3s or perhaps particular corners?
Well, as I say, having had a bit of practice, I had an understanding of what kind of distance I was going to be able to make the overtake on. I think, as Anders mentioned in the previous interview, there's times where both classes just have to work together. Sticking to your line doesn't necessarily just mean stick to the racing line. It means that if you're going to have to go around the outside, or you're going to have to come up the inside, and you're going to have to hold that position and not track out, or sometimes the GTPs are going to be side by side to you at the end of a braking zone. It's just something you have to work with, and both classes have to work together. It's all well and good sort of blaming the other guy necessarily, but you've got to look, see, is there anything further that either of you could have done to look at incidents. I've had a look back at a couple of my incidents, and there's definitely stuff I could have learned. So more continue learning as we go through the season.
Oh, most definitely, and it's always a learning process, particularly when it's the first round of an all-new league hosted here at UKSimRacing. But focusing on the strategy aspect, emerging from the pit lane after a 10-second stop, one of the shortest pit stops we saw from our drivers today, and really the record being held in the GTP Pro class by Austin William Campbell, who was 9.8 seconds, enabled you to gain a lot of time, moved you into the top 5, and then some surprises right at the end of the race in terms of further places gained.
Well, yeah. John got on the radio to me, and John Eddowes, and said, there's been an incident ahead, push, you can get a podium. I think at that point I was sort of on autopilot accepting the P4, and then actually near the end I was only 2 seconds behind being able to get P2, so there was potentially even further there, but it's not over till it's over. It's technically a sprint race, but it's a long sprint race, so a lot can still go wrong.
Oh, most definitely indeed. It's like you say, it's not over until that checker flag is reached. And with that third place today, a great way to start off your championship campaign. And we're definitely not quite at the pace of the Cadillacs around here, but still showing the Acura's got good pace. And in a week's time, we make our way to Fuji's International Speedway in Japan. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
Well, I quite like Fuji as a circuit. I think the track being a bit wider, being a bit longer, there'll be more sort of space for the traffic to deal with itself. Essentially, having India as a starting track was certainly a challenge. But moving on to Fuji, there are some tight aspects of there, and we're going to have to be careful going into turn one. That is going to be, people are going to have to watch out both ways. No obnoxious sends, and if you're side by side in the GTV, you just have to accept and just sort of let the GTP past. So like I said, it comes back to traffic management and people working together. And the people who work together best will be the ones who end up with the most positions gained and highest good positions at the end of the season.
Indeed, I agree with you there. It is going to be a challenging one, and one, like you say, where drivers are going to need to work together in order to get the greatest time efficiency out of those traffic scenarios. But just before we do let you go, and we look forward to round number 2 with yourself, have you got anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, so again, big thank you to everyone at UKSR for organising this league. It's obviously is a little bit different to what we've done in previous seasons. Obviously, thank you to my teammates who are watching the race, and also for coming in and telling me, you can make a bit more here, which was all useful. And a shout out to everyone else I was on the track with, and thank you very much for the race, guys.
Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations on a well-deserved third place in the GTP Pro class for Tiki Sim Sport Corp today. And we look forward to plenty more from yourself as the season goes on, starting with Fuji in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of the evening, and thank you for joining me once again.
Thank you very much.
So hearing there from Alex Hill, or Xander Hill as he's known to close friends, and what a drive from the GTP Pro driver today for Tiki Sim Sport Corp. P7 in qualifying, and in the end could have been right up there on the front 2 rows of the grid if he was able to nail that lap, that 14.0 he was talking about, but wasn't to be. But the thing is, qualifying is only one part of the story, and we say it time and time again, but it's true. If you can put the car on pole, you've then got to keep it at the front for the whole duration of the race. And well, today for Alex, and indeed a good number of his rivals, it would be a balance of managing the car all the way through, imagine the traffic situation, and it's something that Alex absolutely nailed, as we do see an example of him there, making his way past by the old dudes in cars machines, the Ferrari 296 in the replay footage, and in doing so, managing the fuel. And talking about saving fuel behind the Cadillacs 9, he couldn't outrun them on the straights, so therefore it's a prime opportunity to stick in the toe and fuel save. That's what gave him the opportunity to make ground in the pit, move up to P4 come the end of the pit stop, and then in the end of the race, when we did see the unfortunate instance that unfolded, particularly for Austin William Campbell on the closing laps, where it was for Hill to move into P3, and that's where he would finish come the end of it and set a great precedent for what's to come. And I do wonder whether we could see the Cadillacs being quite dominant next week in terms of that long start finish straight at Fuji, but whether we'll see the likes of Alex Hill and his Acura peers making ground over the majority of the lap, given its technical nature, and only time will tell. But now coming on to our third and final interview of today, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be our GT3 AM winner of Matt Edmondson. And well, he's been waiting patiently, but it is time for us to hear the story from the man who I think surprised many today in sneaking his way into the win in the GT3 AM class for UKSimRacing Hill. And as he now joins me in the interview room, good evening to you, Matt. And well, we talked about when you took the win at Road Atlanta in Season 11, the GT3 League, how it was a special moment. But today, you surprised everybody, I think, in terms of sneaking your way into the win on strategy. How does it feel to have taken the first win of the season for the GT3 AM class?
That was, yeah, it was another case of I had absolutely no idea where I was right until the end. That was a hectic race, a lot of extra strategy elements and bits involved, and I always had to have eyes in the back of my head. But yeah, that was a lot of fun for the first round.
Oh, most definitely. It looked as though you're enjoying yourself out there from start to finish, although starting with qualifying, P5 in class, P40 overall, a qualifying session which really did see quite a split in terms of the qualifying times between the GT3 AM drivers. I have to ask, was your P5 representative of where you felt you deserved to be in qualifying, or was there a bit more time out there?
There might have been a little bit more time, but I honestly I didn't expect to be P5. I hadn't. I was fairly slow in the practice sessions and hadn't been able to do too much practice this week, so I just hoped to survive. So the P5 was actually quite a bonus, actually, especially with like how close everybody in AM actually was on the grid. So.
And then coming from that qualifying session, finding you'd set a good lap and representative lap, we went into the race and it looked quite hectic in the run down to turn one, as it always is at Indianapolis, but very quickly things settled down and then the arrival of the GTP traffic comes up behind.
Yeah, it was certainly a classic start. I just managed to keep out of the way of any incidents that were going on and then hang on to the back of the guys in front, and then it was always going to be a bit of a difficult one when the GTPs came through, and it was trying to judge best where they were coming from and keeping to not lose a lot of time myself. I probably got it wrong in a couple of places, but it was trying to work out then when the best to pit, because the extra traffic certainly brings a different element into it.
And just on that with regards to the extra traffic, of course, the pit lane at Indianapolis has been a very long pit lane, but the pit stop itself being quite short. So was there a way you'd understood you could define what your pit window would be, or where you could get yourself into that clear track on exit?
I was a lot more worried about having GTPs on the exit. It was because I knew that it was going to be they were going to be on the inside, and I didn't want to be in their way or have anybody in case I accidentally lit the rear tires up. So I kind of decided early on that I was going to go and try for quite a significant undercut and just pit at the first opportunity I could. And I'm pretty sure I overfueled the car as well, because I still had a few laps of fuel left at the end. But I managed to get out in some decent actual space, and then I think when I'm rubbish with the names, but Oigvind, I can't remember. I'm rubbish saying that. But when I managed to get past him with the pit strategy, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting, and sort of tried to hold the race from there.
Oh, indeed, and we were quite surprised. In fact, so surprised that when it was mentioned to us in the Twitch chat that you'd snuck your way into lead quite late on in the race, we had to do a double check just to make sure what was being told was a reality. Of course, it was. And just with talking about the Ferrari for a little bit, of course, many drivers gambling, yourself included, on going to the new Italian machine for this season of racing. How did you find it, Indianapolis? Because we've been hearing a lot about the fact it's a very complicated car, particularly its tendency to understeer.
For me, and I'm probably not the best person to describe its weaknesses, but it certainly seemed to drive similarly to the last Ferrari, which I'd been driving since that came out. If anything, it's actually better because the old Ferrari had a weird dead zone in the center of the steering wheel, and this just felt a lot smoother. So I had actually ended up having a lot more confidence in the car itself, and was just able to keep it going around the track. It is certainly more understeery in comparison to the other GT3s, but I think for me, and it complements my driving style a bit better, having that sort of almost safety of the understeer. So I decided at one point I was going to move away from Ferrari for this season, and then I'm now kind of glad that I didn't, because I was able to just sort of jump in and be relatively on the ball straight away.
Oh, indeed. It sounds as though it's a perfect partnership between yourself and the all-new Ferrari, as we do see in the replay footage, you diving into the pits there, but almost taking a bit of a rallycross slide on pit entry. But then that final question, of course, coming to the line and recognising that you've added another win to your cabinet. Must have been a bit of a proud moment.
I genuinely didn't know. Like, I thought I might be on the podium just with the way things had shaken out, and kind of like, so I didn't know what had happened to anybody else. I just assumed that Mark or somebody else was further up the road, and then switched on the broadcast to have a quick look and found that, and I was like, again, I've seemed to have snuck and stolen a win away from absolutely nowhere. So I'm quite pleased, and we'll see if we can keep on top of it for the rest of the season.
Well, indeed, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from yourself. Speaking of which, round number 2 in a week's time is at the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. How are you feeling for a visit to the highly technical Japanese circuit?
I missed the round last season that for the GT3 League that was at Fuji, but I have driven it a fair bit on other sims and other games, and I've always enjoyed it. So I'm hoping that it will be another decent result. It's certainly a much wider track than Indy, and I feel it will be a bit better suited to the multi-class racing. Even the IMSA commentators today were in the real life were discussing how Indy wasn't quite right for multi-class because there was certainly a few incidents there. So yeah, we'll but hopefully it should be a good round, and we'll see what we can do.
Oh, indeed, and we look forward to seeing you on the grid for next week's round. But just before we do let you go, Matt, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Big shout out to all the admins of UKSR for putting on these leagues for everybody. They're always huge fun. Yourself for the broadcast and everything each week. All the stewards that are going to have to go through everything each week. Everybody in the league that I raced against was very good today. So shout out to them. And yeah, just thank you to everybody.
Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on taking the opening win in the GT3 AM class for this season. We look forward to plenty more from yourself as of next week. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening. And thank you for joining me in the interview room.
Thank you, Paul. Take care.
So hearing that there from our GT3 AM winner today of Matt Edmondson, and well, surprised to be certain and sure with regards to his win, and surprising himself in the end with regards to bringing home that win, and only finding out after he'd got out of the car and took a look at the race results. And well, what a way to receive a win at the end for UKSimRacing Hill, albeit making it work on strategy today and talking about the fact finding the ideal time to come into the pits and coming out of the pits negotiating away from GTP class traffic. So definitely having a more strategic head-on compared to perhaps some other drivers here, albeit that's not a critique, but many drivers went for pace today, I would say, in the GT3 class. Meanwhile, Matt definitely focusing on what was strategy over pace first and foremost, and it paying dividends in the end, and being smart and safe really has proven to be efficient. But the question is at Fuji, with the circuit perhaps being a bit more open and wide for multi-class racing, could we see him have to step it up again if he wants to make it another win, or will his nuance in terms of strategy shine through once again? We'll have to wait and see in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And you've just heard from Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Hill in the GT3 AM class. But previously, you heard from Anders Myra in the RaceLab Esports Moser GT3 Pro number 20 Ferrari. And we also heard previously from Alex Hill from Tiki SimSport Corporate for the 276 GTP Pro Acura. Congratulations to all three of our drivers on their results, especially our winners of Myra and also Edmondson, and also our podium finisher, to be fair, of Hill. And thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room once again. But with that, it is now time for us to give you an update on the standings after one round of racing. And keeping in mind, these standings are provisional, but we start off with the GTP Pro standings. And as we can see here in the first of our 4 Drivers' Championships, it's Joe Newman who set the benchmark for Empire Motorsport A. And what a drive from him today. I would have loved to have heard from him. I think we all would have loved to, in terms of that roller coaster ride of almost putting the car in the wall coming out the final corner to come on through or clear it from the wall to take the win today. Well, he's got a 2-point advantage over Joshua Wilson, the Effect Simulations driver, who kept Newman honest all the way throughout. Alex Hill P3 there for Tiki SimSport Corpa, but the one driver I think everybody right now will be looking at and thinking, if only things have been different, Austin William Campbell, P4 for Symphony Esports, and what looked to be a win very rapidly heading his way, but an instant 5 minutes in the end cost him dear, and he will be the one looking for a retribution and redemption next week. Ben Cullen, P5 for Effect Simulations, showing a great consistent performance, head of Cy Anthony, with Ryan Davies, Alexander Tremino Mickelson, Matt Strand and Paul Busby completing your top 10, and then yet to score any points, Nathan Scott, Jonathan Hitchin and Alistair Kirk, or Ali Kirk as he's known in short, and we look forward to seeing him on the grid in round number 2. Coming on to the GTP AM class, we can then see Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports, your winner today. Also picking up a bonus point there, puts him on 41 points to the 38 of Billy Bob Ray, with the Empire Motorsport A drive being followed up by Tiger Racing Team's Dave Rutherstone, or David Rutherstone in full. And then outside the top 3, Rudy Witzton for Racing Lab Esports KTM. Great performance, albeit a couple of incidents costing him dear, and it could have been a potential podium for the BMW driver. And Rob Armstrong slotting his way into P5 for UKSimRacing Bell, just ahead of Alden Hegeseter for Racing Lab Esports Moser, with a BMW driver there as well. The two BMWs going very well and showing their race pace more than their qualifying pace, and that could be a theme of the season. Aaron Beaver, P7, ahead of Sam Sherwood. Unfortunate day today for Sam Sherwood, but I think he'll be back on all cylinders at Fuji, a circuit which he definitely does enjoy. We've seen that in the past from him, and the ProTech Motorsport drive should go well there. And yet to score any points, Richard Jones, Paul Joseph Cliss and David Lowerson. We then come to the GT3 classes, starting the GT3 Pro class, and here we can see Anders Meyer takes an early lead by 2 points for Racing Lab Esports Moser over Short Competition Esports' Aaron Vergoe, with Reece Saunders there for Team Year 1 completing that top 3 and picking up a bonus point as well for the fastest lap in the race. Haroldo Stratata's fastest lap in qualifying, taking pole position, but definitely needing to look at the strategy and where it went wrong today for the over limit racing driver, but definitely pushing it to limit in the Porsche 992, and we look forward to plenty more from the Lithuanian as the next week. The same for Adrian Kukulis, the Australian for Short Competition Esports, showing a great top 5 performance there, and he's 2 points ahead of Heckin Gristad, with Darren Sharples, Joshua Pratt, Martin Tennant and Pete Cox rounding off the top 10. Best of SP11, Marvin Cruz for Old Dudes in Cars. A difficult day today for Old Dudes in Cars, and I think really exemplified by Cruz and the fact some great pace undermined by some small moments of inconsistency in terms of the way traffic fell for him. Aerosif P12, a surprise there for our defending GT3 champion, and we look forward to seeing him potentially back on all form at the next round he's able to attend, as I do believe he'll miss the next 2 rounds as well due to the clash with the Norwegian National Championships, but we'll have to wait and see. And then Kerry Kokorin, Casper Brotner and Thomas Aspau through to P15. With P16 for John Maloney, and then we can see Ryan Moles, Daniel Pays, and John Watt round off P17 through to P19, with no points to Chris Kirtland, alternatively Chris Constable, and that's how your GT3 Pro standing stand. And lastly, coming onto the GT3 AM standings, we can see Matt Edmondson takes the initial lead on 40 points versus Oyvind Breivik, and Oyvind Breivik, the driver with the pace today, but Edmondson with the strategy, and well, could we see the tables turn next week, or will it remain that way? And then Lawrence Marsh completing the top 3. Satinder Deensa and Mark Johnson in the top 5 there, P4, P5 respectively, with both drivers having a great performance and both showing their strengths, albeit they'll both be looking for the podium next time, particularly Mark Johnson, who definitely seems to have a lot of pace at his fingertips, and that's why he's on 34 points, with both bonus points going his way. And then John Davies P6 for the wrong stuff ahead of Stein Sani, with Shaminder Deensa, and then Tom Barger and Cy Hartley completing the top 10. P11 at best of rest, Neil Smith, and a difficult day for the BMW M4 Privateer, ahead of Andy Skinner, with Nicholas Rice, James Conley and BJ Alvarez completing your top 15. Now we come on to the Teams Championship standings, and as we can see here, just looking at the top 20 after the first round, it is Empire Motorsport A who've taken an early lead of 6 points over Racing Lab Esports KTM, and they further 2 points to Short Competition Esports. However, they're on 70 points, much like Racing Lab Esports Moser and Effect Simulations, with result countback separating the 3 teams currently. And it's UKSimRacing Mansell and UKSimRacing Hill tied on 62 points, P6, with Tiki Sim Sport Corporate also joining them, and the top 10 rounded off by UKSimRacing Bell and Tiki Sim Sport Tower. Best SP11 is Tiki Simsport, the base team, ahead of Racing Lab Esports Car X, with Downforce Racing, Team Year 1 and Tiger Racing Team through to the top 15. And then joint 35 points, ProTech Motorsport and Over Limit Racing, with Symphony Esports and Old Dudes in Cars, joint P18 on 34 points. And last but not least, to complete the top 20, the wrong stuff there on 30 points. But remember, these results are provisional. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up.
Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking to yourself that you want to be on the grid or potentially on the reserve list for this series, given the fact that we have got a large number of reserves, and we should point out right now we are considering running a lower split or an alternative split version of the multi-class league if we get enough numbers to do so. So if you're sat there thinking you want to be on the grid for this alternative split, which we run in parallel with the main league that's being broadcast, then definitely get in touch with UK Sim Racing community. Or perhaps you just want to know more about other upcoming leagues, including Season 8 of the UK Sim Racing Porsche Cup, also our MX5 Cup League, and other leagues we've got planned for the remainder of 2023. Well, the best thing to do is firstly go to our official website. You saw it earlier today in the broadcast at uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're not wanting to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, you can of course follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. And you'll find out there about our leagues, but also the latest trials and tribulations and performances of the official UK Sim Racing esports teams. We'd also like to take this moment and to say a big thank you to our affiliates, who do include Swilling Almeida Sim Racing Coaching, the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist. Swilling Almeida Sim Racing Coach can help take your sim racing driver to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swilling has a coaching course to meet your needs. And plus, with him being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim race-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make SimLab the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Also Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which do include but not limited to Amazon Prime, Amazon Alexa, and Amazon Fire TV. And lastly, SRC Driver Academy, a division of sim racing community. Elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose them? To put it simply, affordable, quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights to the competitive edge. They make higher quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost tailored to your needs and goals. Whether you're looking to learn race strategies, position driving, or much more, they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. So join SRC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. And well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attention to round number 2 at the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. And whilst the race in itself will be brought to you in terms of the actual racing that will occur on Sunday, the 24th of September, due to the way the broadcasting schedule works out for this season, we're going to be bringing you all the circuit from Japan as if it were live. Save the date right now on Monday, the 2nd of October 2023. Indeed, that week we are going to have a double header of post-round broadcasts for rounds 2 and 3. But the date you need to save is Monday, the 2nd of October. Be there to see how it all unfolds in Japan. And I can promise you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't tuned into a post-round broadcast before, do not be dismayed. It will be as close as possible to the raw live experience. And well, it's a show definitely worth coming back for after round number 1 today. I think we'll all agree, because the tempo has been set across all 4 classes. Indeed, right now it seems to be wide open wherever you look. Can anyone emerge as an early favourite in round number 2? We'll find out then. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.